Secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a rocky mountain high, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in colorful Colorado. It is Sunday, June 7th, Monday, June 8th, for those of you across the pond and beyond. Welcome to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. I'm so glad you guys can join us tonight on one of our many outlets. You can find us live at Spreaker.com under We Are Paradox Media, Twitter, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Tumblr, YouTube, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, Deezer, as well as Podcast Addict and Facebook. If you guys could, make sure you go out there to our YouTube channel, We Are Paradox Media. Give us a like on our videos. Subscribe to us. That's the big thing. That way we can go live with our paranormal hunts and such instead of having to upload video. It's been kind of crazy with internet connection and such lately, but I'm your host, TessaTNT, and I'm so glad you guys are here tonight. We are going to be talking to and getting to know Dave, aka Gutter Gawker, and he says, unquestionably, since the summer of 2009, he has been seeing what he believes are extraterrestrial craft flying over him. He has seen them in different parts of the U.S., and they come out in all sorts of shapes, sizes, and colors in the daylight and night. What he has seen has, for the most part, seems to be very peaceful. For some reason, they decided they wanted to show themselves to him. So in this real-life true paranormal case study of his life, he is trying to figure out why, from peppered high and low lights from his life, and ask questions like, what is it that he's seeing? Why can he see them? And are they good, or do they have bad intent, or both? His life has been very chaotic, and it was even predicted in the tarot cards when an old Irish psychic lady named Ethel, his mom used to go see for future advice, asked him to flip a tarot card, and the chaos card came up. Some people on the internet email or comment on his YouTube channel, Gutter Gawker, and say, stay away from they are negative, living off the negative energy around you. And he doesn't think that's the case, but that's really up to you to decide. Welcome, Dave, aka Gutter Gawker. How's it going? Oh no, now I can't hear you. Hello? Dave, are you there? Wow. Very odd. I'm wondering...
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. There you are. Welcome.
On the speaker. I hope you can't... Hello, how are you, dear?
Good, how are you?
I'm great. I hope you're not hearing a feedback.
No, it actually sounds really good. Before I was hearing like a white noise pretty high, but now it's really good.
Okay. Yeah, I moved away from the refrigerator. Sorry, I'm in a bar in Forest Park, Illinois. That's where I live stream from. And so, well, actually, it's a haunted bar. So it's a little loud in here. I apologize for that.
No worries. That's awesome. So can you tell us a little bit about the haunting there?
It's a bar called Carol's in Forest Park, Illinois. And a previous owner, who used to own the establishment, actually died on the pool table here and has been haunting it ever since. He seems to prefer the females patrons instead of the males for some reason, but I guess that comes from being an old male dead bartender owner.
Yeah, it just kind of comes along with the territory. So I had a friend that owned a restaurant/bar here in Bayfield, and she had a blanket laid out on her pool table. Was he sleeping on the pool table like she was, or how did he end up there?
He was going through a divorce, and he owned the place, and he was pretty stressed out, and he was drinking a lot, and he ended up having an aneurysm on the pool table. And the funny thing is, well, it's not funny, but his friend walked up and looked at him on the pool table through the window and thought he was passed out and went home for the night. And he was actually dead on the pool table. Poor guy.
Yeah, it's crazy how quickly that stuff can just catch you on guard and take you.
So now he likes to throw things around the bar occasionally, especially when there's a lot of crazy energy around here. He likes to go nuts and make himself known to a lot of people.
What does he throw? Like glasses or ashtrays or?
Whatever's around him that's convenient. Last thing that I saw him throw, it was around Halloween time, and there was a fake mask on top of one of the gaming machines, and all of a sudden it whipped down super fast, like it was hitting pins like a bowling ball, and it smashed everybody's drink down. I never seen something get whipped so fast. It was crazy.
It's insane. And how long has he been on the other side?
It's been a while. I would say maybe about 25, 30 years.
Yeah, it's amazing how long they stick around. My favorite bar here just down the road, the Billy Goat Saloon, the owner of that bar, the old owner, they actually passed it on to a girl that was waiting tables there that took not only really good care of the bar, but themselves. They gave it to her to run, and she's done an awesome job. But we went in for an investigation there and actually picked up on a lot of activity. And it's funny, I put the EMF detector right next to where his ashes were in the cupboard, I guess. I had no idea, but I was like, this seems like a good place.
So you get a lot of scarings yourself then, huh? You attract ghosts as well?
Yes. Ever since I was a babe.
Wow. That must freak you out.
I'm pretty used to it. My sleep schedule has always been messed up. It's always been about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. But since the whole COVID lockdown and everything, it's been a couple hours later. It's been strange, but I call it paranormal PTSD. So due to my paranormal experiences as a kid, I'm so used to staying up waiting for something to happen as a kid that it just, it's been a part of my whole life.
Now, is this a generational thing with your family?
Yes, my mother was very gifted. She would go and talk to and see the dead, and she had so many different encounters, one even being with the devil. She even knew when and how she was going to die and wrote a letter to her dad from actually here in southwest Colorado. She came out on a trip from Arkansas, but she told him how she was going to die and how she wanted her funeral and that she really wanted his help with it. And I remember when she and my dad came to pick us up, that they had a lengthy argument. My grandpa was very upset that she'd write anything like that. And my mom was like, you know me, and I'm a very stable person, but Dad, this is really going to happen. Will you please help me? And it actually came to pass, and she had the funeral she wanted. And yeah, we, as her kids, we all have gifts. And then my children as well have gifts.
That's interesting, because I had mentioned when I sent you that one paragraph that you read earlier about me. You mentioned my great aunt who was psychic. I think these things pass through the family, to be honest with you, to see if people have gifts to see certain spiritual things or supernatural things or paranormal. I think it might be part of your family.
Yeah, I think it's part of the genetic makeup, and I guess they've done studies that show whatever you interact with throughout life. They talk about curses being carried over to different family members, but it really does change your genetic makeup. So, my mom was a blue-eyed Cherokee German girl. She was very beautiful, but very gifted, and I wonder about her parents, too. When I lived with them after my mom had passed away, they would never cop to nothing. We'd be scared. Grandma, Grandpa, there's something out here. We're scared. And they'd be like, be quiet, go to sleep. There's nothing out there, when there's actually stuff out here. I think they were aware of it, but they didn't really want to feed into it.
That's amazing. I love those stories.
My dad, on the other hand, never had a paranormal experience until he did get with and marry my mom. And then the very first house we all lived in, which was owned by her family, he saw a man going up a ladder into the attic, which there was no ladder there, but there was an entryway to the attic. But he saw the shoulders down portion of this man, and my dad really flipped out. But my sister and I, and our other siblings, mostly my sister and I, would play at his feet on the front porch. I remember little flashes of him, but I don't remember a lot. I think he was related. It was, I think, a great uncle or great grandpa or something of ours.
I remember my mom was really into the supernatural. She was into the psychic readings and the tarot cards and all that stuff. But my dad wasn't all his life. He hated talking about the subject. And the funny thing is that both my parents had died at one time in their lives. My mom was a 4-year-old little girl. She had scarlet fever and she died. And I asked her what happened to her afterwards. She said she didn't remember anything. And then years and years later, my dad, who never liked talking about ghosts or anything like this, he told me a story. He said that when he was working on a car as a young man, the car fell on him. The jack busted out, and the car pushed the life out of him. He said.
Holy shnikes.
He said he went up to heaven and he saw 3 judges, and he was pleading with them. He said, I don't want to die yet. I want to get back to Earth, and I want to have grandkids. And he said, they brought him back to life, and brought him back to his body, and he had grandkids. So, some people are really into it in life and, don't have the experiences, and some people have the experiences and don't want to talk about it. It's kind of like myself.
Yeah, it's really interesting, too, just the different outcomes of different situations. Like you said, he had kind of left his body, went to heaven, and had that experience. It wasn't his time. He wasn't ready and wanted to have kids and grandkids and, the whole basket of goods. But I have a friend that has actually had, 4 or 5 open-heart surgeries and been on the other side several times, and he's not experienced anything. Like, he could hear what was going on around him, but he said all he saw was darkness. But I wonder if that just has to do with his beliefs, like not really believing on anything on the other side, and therefore he doesn't see anything, or, is it that way forever? Or does he eventually get to, do an astral hop and go anywhere he wants, anytime he wants? It's hard to say.
It's the great unknown. All I know is the books that I read and the experiences that I have, Tessa, so I wish I knew all the answers.
Yeah, I don't think we're meant to, but we can know some of it.
Absolutely. I think we're just all learning lessons here on Earth.
So, Dave, when was your very first paranormal experience?
Well, my very first factual one where I know I saw something bizarre was with a group of people on the northwest side of Chicago. We were on, it was August 23rd, 2009. My friend was having a birthday party for his 2-year-old daughter. They had just bought a ranch house. Well, actually, his wife's grandmother had died, and they bought the grandmother's house. And that was another haunted place that I'll share with you later if we get time. But we were out front. They were having a party. There was a bunch of people inside. There was a bunch of people outside. And I was outside with a bunch of people. And some people were smoking. Some people were just laughing, having a drink. And nobody was wasted or anything. And we're watching my friend Girk. He's juggling. We're all laughing at him. He's juggling and stuff. And I'm gonna use first letters for names. This girl B. She looks up in the sky and she screams, "What the hell is that?" And I look up and I see this bright red ball of light, and it's floating from his house towards us. And I'm looking at this thing. It's just a circular red, deep red light, and it's probably the size of maybe about a Gatorade bottle cap if you held it at arm's length. And I'm watching it. And it disappears into this purple plum ripple as if a rock was hitting the water. And it disappeared. And then we were stunned. We were like, what the hell was that? There was about 10 of us outside. And we were in amazement. And then we look over the trees. We were in the Edgebrook section of Chicago. And we're looking at Wildwood Park, which is right next to his house, my friend B. And we see these orange balls of light start coming over the trees, right over the park, one by one. And it pulled up in a straight line, these 3 orange balls of light. They pulled up like a train, excuse me, like a train at a train stop, 3 balls. And then they turned into triangle formation. And then these three balls, one by one, they looked like if you turned on an electric stove on the radiator on an electric stove, it was that bright. And they would dim out one by one, and they would shoot up in the sky like a spider going up its web. And then it would dart across the sky like a shooting star. And then it repeated this pattern. These UFOs repeated this pattern 3 or 4 times over about a 15 to 20 minute period. I was watching it for so long. I was begging his wife, to come on. She was like a semi-professional photographer at the time. I was asking her to come out and start recording this stuff. But in the meantime, her little daughter had come out, and she's 2 years old. I picked her up, and I walked closer to the orange lights. And I grabbed her, and she said, she's like, uh-oh. But I walked up. Yeah, she's very, just like a little kid, like, oh, what the hell is this? But I picked her up and I walked closer, because this is the night that I thought that aliens and UFOs were actually going to land. I had that feeling like, oh my God, these guys are coming down. This is the night. And so I grabbed her and I said, hey, I was thinking to the UFOs, I was trying to be as peaceful about it. I haven't been the greatest person all my life, Tessa. I've always been trying to get better and better. And, but I saw these UFOs and I was saying to myself, if this is the night we're going to make contact, I'm going to try to be as good as a human as I can, portray to these guys. And I grabbed little A and I walked up to the UFOs and I said, hey, if you guys are coming down, it's cool. We need your help. There's a lot of war. There's a lot of famine. There's a lot of disease. There's a lot of this. And I just try to be as peaceful as I possibly could to them. And they just did their show and they disappeared. And then I saw in the background in the park, there was a different craft. There was a black manta ray looking thing. There was like shimmering black, and it was flying like a rectangular pattern in the sky over the park. It was just the most amazing show I've ever seen. And ever since that day, I've been convinced there's something else to this world. I don't know what it is, but a lot of people saw it with me that day, and I reported it to the Illinois State MUFON director, and here we are now. But that was the first one.
Was MUFON able to help at all?
No, MUFON came over. I don't want to say the guy's name because we didn't. At first we got along a little bit, but then he didn't go out to investigate anything. He didn't go to talk to anyone and do anything about it. He would just talk to me about, did you see the TV shows that I put out? And this is what I'm going to do next. And I was like, oh, what? And that's when I got, disenfranchised with MUFON. It doesn't seem like they're there to help. So that was my experience with MUFON.
Yeah, I think it all kind of ends up being whoever is on the team. Sometimes there's like one person, sometimes there's a lot of people working together to actually do something. But yeah, this guy kind of seemed like he was self-centered and didn't really care about your experience or anything like that, really.
Well, he's a popular person. He's been on TV. He's an Illinois State MUFON director. I don't want to throw the guy under the bus. Maybe a lot of people like him, but I didn't think they did their due diligence, because, all right, after that day, I considered myself, I'm an experiencer, I guess, from what I've read. And, I want to say something to all the experiencers out there, Tessa. It's okay to come out and share your stories. I know UFOs are real. I've seen them. I'm not going to speculate on, what they are. I'm just going to judge them by the actions that I've seen. But I don't need disclosure. I know they're here. And I'm trying to figure out if they have good or bad intent. I'm to that point. I'm so for sure that they're here. That I can only judge them by their actions. But it took me. Here's what I'm trying to say, Tessa. It took me a long time. I used to hide for a long time. I made this Gutter Gawker channel back in 2008. I didn't start come out talking about this stuff till about this year. And now I don't really give a crap. Who knows? So I just want other people to know that it's okay that you have these experiences because there's people like me that have them too.
Did you kind of keep it to yourself because different people were treating you weirdly? Like, hey, this guy's a weirdo. I mean, I had that experience as a kid growing up. The paranormal to me was normal. And then I try to make friends and tell my stories. And most people treated me like an outcast, like I'm weird, something wrong with me. But sometimes you'd find really good friends that eventually you could share it with. But I didn't come out of the paranormal closet until 2012, and it was due to a mother whose son went missing, and I just wanted to help. So yeah, at that point it was like you said, I didn't care anymore. I just wanted to help, and I didn't care what anybody said. You can say I'm crazy or whatnot, but it's a lot more acceptable today, I feel, because of different shows and such going on than it was back in the day when we were growing up.
I had kept it to myself because of the job that I have. I work for a major airline, so I didn't want to announce it to everybody what, my whatever it is, whatever I can see, I didn't want to run around and start telling everybody. And so, I had this Gutter Gawker channel a long time before I started to see UFOs. So I just started to put the stuff onto that channel. But I really did prefer to not be in everybody's face. I never wanted to be like that. I never wanted to be that person where I'm going to come out and beg you for your money or sell you anything or write a book or write a movie and charge you. I'm the type of person that believes that, there's real paranormal out there. And if I want to be as genuine as I can about it. And so I kind of wanted to be low key from the start and just be quiet about it and just talk to people and talk to people and talk to people. But I started talking to people so much that I just had to come out and just start saying stuff. This is, I'm actually seeing these things happen. Have been seeing them for a long time now. Ever since that day in 2009, I've seen them quite a bit.
Yeah, and like I was saying earlier about my dad, he wasn't really into the paranormal, didn't believe a lot about it until he first saw ghosts, but he had told me a story about when his dad saw ghosts, but he believed in UFOs, and he was having a yard sale once, and he was selling his UFO books, so I purchased them. I still have them out there on my bookshelf, but he was the one that first intrigued me about him, and I remember when we were kids driving down the highway somewhere in Arkansas, and there was a bunch of lights just like kind of hovering and then slowly coming towards us on this. It seemed like a overpass over a waterway, a really large one. And there was a lot of cars pulling over too. Like, what the hell is that? Eventually it got close enough that we could see that it was helicopters. So my dad was really bummed out about that. But yeah, I've always wanted to believe, and it was, I believe it was 2012 as well. 2012 when I saw my first UFO. The first time I saw it, it was, like you said, it was an orangish red craft, and it was quite high in the sky, and it was following us for about 15 miles from Ignacio, Colorado to Bayfield, and the girls are seeing it and saying it's following us. So I pulled over on the side of the road where the Rainbow Road and Highway 160B intersect, and got out to look because I didn't want to do it while driving, and I could see it up in the air. And like you said, it was just a little ball that looked orangish red colored. Got in the car because the kids really wanted to go home. They weren't feeling safe. And then I didn't see one again until after my son was born. I was pregnant with him at that time. And I'm holding him, and I'm thinking about Dylan Redwine, which is a boy that went missing. And it was one of those really bright winter nights, and the horse field in the backyard was just covered in snow. And I'm just looking out there, hoping if he was taken somewhere that he's warm and he's safe and whatnot. And all of a sudden, I see another orangish reddish ball, but it's much larger because it's only about 3 feet off the ground, and it's going along the fence line that connects with the properties that connect with us, and it's getting closer and closer. I'm trying to get my phone flipped open and get to the camera part of it, but I can't. I'm just like my hands are panicking. And so I called my family over. My two girls and I saw I want to call it an alien orb, could be a Foo Fighter, whatever the heck they're called. 3 or 4 feet in circumference, and it looked like it had liquid fire flowing through it. So it was red and orange and yellow color, and it was just moving at a slow walking pace along the fence line. At first, I put my son down and I open the door and I take one step out, and then I realize, hey, I got 3 kids that I got to take care of, and I don't know what this thing's intentions are. But I never felt threatened from it, but I wonder what would have happened had I tried to approach it.
Did you take that as a good sign then, with everything going on?
Yeah, it was, I don't know, was not threatening, didn't try anything. I think they're just going along and picking up information, observing us and seeing what we're doing. The funny thing was, me and my 2 girls saw the same thing. My husband saw, it looked like a force field or a glass globe, whatever you want to call it, with a glowing bat inside, flapping its wings at a very slow rate of speed. So it makes me wonder, do they have some sort of shield that makes you see whatever they want you to see? Why did we all see the same thing, but he didn't?
You know, it's amazing that you got the chance to see these things. You know, when I see them, if they appear at a certain time of day and they look a certain way or a certain color, I'll take it as a good sign. There's some craft that I see, I don't think it looks too good. It kind of looks ominous.
Yeah.
The way I portrayed it in the beginning of this is I'm trying to figure out if these things have good or bad intent. And some of the stuff that I see, it looks beautiful. And some of the stuff I see, it just looks, you wouldn't want to mess with that, So, but I've had some scary encounters with some stuff, but I've also had some beautiful encounters.
Yeah, I've every time I've seen a craft, I've never had a negative experience. I've never been taken. I have friends that have been taken. Actually went to New Orleans this year to check out a case by Chad and Alta Dillon, and they wrote the book Orbducted in the French Quarter, and he actually walked us through Louisiana, and I was doing Facebook Live the whole time, and he's telling us about the different locations they hit and where the final abduction happened, which was right outside Checkpoint Charlie's in the old downtown district. But it was very interesting. There was a lot of energy. I didn't witness anything myself that I know of. One of our voice recorders in the middle of the night turned on by itself, but otherwise we didn't really have any crazy activity. It was just, you could feel the energy. But yeah, they had an orb experience too, and they were actually taken. They call it Orbducted. And they all ended up in different places at different times and don't remember anything until later on. They just, how you keep thinking about different experiences and then you get more and more memories as time goes by. Or you could do regression, whether it's past life or regression for experiences on this earth. Have you ever done one of those?
I've never, but I've been to psychics who've told me I've had past lives and the such. One of them told me I was a tail gunner in World War II, and that's why I'm claustrophobic and scared to fly, because I died in a plane crash, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe I saw Foo Fighters when I was in as a tail gunner, and maybe they keep following me. But it's funny with the orange orbs. To get back to that is, sometimes I'll be chilling and I'll say, I'll miss my parents or something. They're both passed, and I'll say, hey, how are my parents doing? Do they miss me at all? And all of a sudden I'll see an orange orb fly by, or I'll see, one of these little bright crafts just brighten up. So, there's something that's they're attached to that's good about them. There's something about some of these crafts that they show respect. From the interactions that I've seen, they're some of them are very polite and very playful, to be honest.
Yeah, and do you believe that there's not only like alien orbs, but spirit orbs? Because there are, and there is a difference between the two. And some of us can see both of them with the naked eye, and some of us only can capture them in pictures, where a lot of times they'll say, oh, that's dust. You can tell, well, I can, the difference between dust and actual spirit orbs. You can see features inside a spirit orb, and there's like a glowing around the edge of it, and then other ones are just like, they have a weird edge and they're floating along with different layers, and that's the dust. So maybe like some of those, like you were saying, is your family or something coming out
I know
as an
exactly
orb?
what you're talking about. Well, from the UFOs, they look way different than the ghost orbs. I know what you're talking about, where you see an orb and there's a lot of detail inside that orb. I've seen those types, so I know exactly where you're coming from. But I don't see too much ghost stuff. I'll see random things happen, but I've never had an issue with ghosts. It just seems to be UFOs that like me for some reason.
So, you were in the military, correct?
Yeah, I was in Marine Corps.
Hoorah, Semper Fi, brother.
Hoorah.
Did you ever have any experiences while you were in?
No, but afterwards I began to think about it. Have I ever had an experience before? Now that I've seen the orange orbs and other craft, have I ever seen anything like it before? And I think I did have two previous. One time I was driving to I was driving through Washington State from Seattle to Yakima. It was my son's 14th birthday, and I had to drive over a mountain of snow. And I was in a all-white Ford Fusion, and I get to the bottom of the mountain, and the trooper's like, "You better have snow chains." I'm like, "I'm getting to my kid's birthday. See ya." And I take
slipping
off.
and sliding.
I make it to the top of the mountain. I'm like, "Yes, thank God." And at the time, I was smoking, and I had a cigarette to celebrate a little bit, which was the wrong idea, because then all of a sudden, guess what happened? The car starts spinning down the mountain. And
once you get to the top, that's not bad. It's once you start going back down, and you got to fight against that gravity.
I spun out into a snowbank, thank God, and I was there for so long by myself. All I saw was one trooper. She came by and she put a flare next to me, and she's like, "I got to call a tow truck. It's going to be a while." So I had so long. I sat there for 3 hours watching a movie on my laptop. But I got out of my car to have a cigarette at the time, and at the top of the mountain was this bright orange ball of light. And I was like, what the hell is that? I didn't really think about it until years later, but it might have been a sighting at that time. It's just been interesting to constantly see these things. They just show up in different times of day, every shape, size, and color.
Yeah, I sent you some pictures earlier, and the very first one is the one I call Conference in the Clouds, because you have different colored lights. There's a red, orange, white, I think a green and a blue one. I don't remember, but they're all up on a cloud to the side of the moon. And then later on, in the other pictures I sent, you could actually see them closer up, and they were always in the same formation. And my nephew, actually, when he was out here from Arkansas this last month, was talking about, the triangle form. And I was like, no, I don't really think so. But then when I looked back at it, you can put it together as triangle forms. But they came in as little light balls, and then they became shuttlecraft. And then before they disappeared, they became little lights again. And then, like you said, they just kind of dissipated and they were gone. I couldn't see any other shuttlecraft because it was pretty cloudy that night, kind of sparse. But it was pretty intriguing, and I wasn't even looking for UFOs. I was looking for Perseids or shooting stars or whatever, and it was so cloudy, and the moon, it was full that night, and the electric blue color that was coming off of it, I'll have to send you some of those too. That's why I first started taking the pictures and then reviewing it. As a photographer, you do that, is this clear? Do I need to change the shutter or whatnot? But yeah, that's when I saw the circle and then the different shuttlecraft. It's really crazy the way that they kind of change form.
Yeah, pictures and videos are one thing, but seeing them in person when they're changing form is insane. The balls, the orange orbs, and these things, I don't really see them doing too much morphing other than dimming out. But there's some darker UFOs that I have seen that have definitely morphed into multiple shapes right in front of my eyes.
So what sort of shapes? Some that I've seen taking pictures of the moon and such, they're rainbow colored, and they can do different zigzags, kind of wavy things, and it's really strange. It's kind of like space worms or something, but they do different shapes and such, like shuttlecraft lights.
Well,
Maybe they're
a lot of these things that I see, they kind of look like crop circle formations, to be honest with you. There's a lot of geometric patterns that I see. One time I was in the back of my friend B's house where we saw that first UFO, and I'm playing with his daughter, and we're like blowing bubbles in the backyard. And I looked up, and I saw what looked like the moon. I was like, what the hell is the moon doing out right now? And then I looked at it like closer, and it was three crystal clear bubbles, but it was like one was bigger than the other. You know, it was the first one was the biggest, or the back one was the biggest. Then there was a middle one that was smaller. Then there was a smaller one on this side. It looked like a basketball, a softball, and a golf ball lined up on a pool table, all facing me, but they were crystal clear. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And then I've seen a black pyramid flew over O'Hare Airport one time. It morphed from a little tiny ball. It was in the rain clouds. I was back by Terminal 2, and I was looking up. There's a bunch of people watching this. It was right in between three towers. And I look up, and there's this black thing in the clouds. And I thought it was a helicopter at first. I was like, what the hell is this helicopter doing in the clouds hovering over the airport? And the clouds kind of dissipated, and it looked like a motorcycle helmet. It had a shield in the front, and it was all black in the back. And it came down closer, and it turned into this big black pyramid. It was like a 3D pyramid, and it was flickering lights, and it was giant, and it turned back into a ball and disappeared. There was one guy trying to record it with his phone. It was the most craziest stuff. So these things, for some reason, they like to be brave and bold around me. And it looks like there's good ones, and it looks like there's bad ones for some reason.
Well, even, back in Christ times and such, you find these different paintings and artworks where there's people in the forefront, but in the background, in the sky, you see these different craft, and they're fighting each other with these little fireballs and other things happening. Like, I think there's different degrees, just like in the military, private, first class, so on and so forth. You got the little orbs, you got the shuttlecraft, you got the shapeshifters, you got the mothership. I was actually doing security one night, and I have a Black Cherokee friend named Johnny, and we were sitting there, we get together for our safety meetings, and he's like looking up the other direction, kind of laid back on the back of the cart. He's like, what the hell is that? And we all look up, and it has several lights, and they're going in a rotational form. But a couple times it actually went into a U shape, and it would tilt this way, and then you just see the lights going around, and then it'd do a U shape, and it actually did that a few times. And that was near the fairgrounds in Durango. Never had anything negative from it. We were all watching it, and I was like, hey guys, we're going to be all staring at this thing, and somebody's going to walk up behind us, and like 5 minutes later somebody did. And then on the way back from Arkansas, we had to go bury my Uncle Daddy Rex, and he was buried in Huntsville, Arkansas on the way through Texas. And I know it's a male name starting with an A. I can't remember it. It's not Austin. It's something else, like Andre or something like that. But I saw these lights going up and down, and it is just hundreds of miles of fields of red lights, because they have the windmills or whatnot to get all the energy. All of a sudden I see these white lights, and at first it looks like it could be some sort of lookout point, but then you see it moving up and down. Although the road is straight as can be, there's no hills to be seen in sight. This thing is moving up and down. And so I pointed out to my brother Aaron. He originally was my cousin, but then I was adopted. But my brother cousin's son is what I call him. I was like, Aaron, check it out. There's a freaking UFO out there. He's like, no, that's just a lookout tower. And I'm like, that's what I thought too, but it's going up and down. And so he's paying closer and closer attention. And then we get to the point where we're cricking our necks back, and I can't look any longer. I'm in the back seat and buckled up. But he said he saw it all of a sudden. It went down, and then it just like shot out. But it looked like one of those flat top hats. It had the little saucer thing underneath it, and then a room on top with the windows. That's what the white lights were. And you can actually see figures in there. Is it another way of observing how we're getting power and what we're doing? Or I don't know. It was pretty interesting.
It is interesting. And you know what else is interesting? What you actually said a little bit ago, where you said that you believe that there's like a ranking system, I believe that there's a hierarchy to these things. I think the certain colors that they show or the certain shapes that they show means something to their either rank or their whatever it is in life that they are. They might be a priest or a prince or a scout. But I think the crafts that they show up in definitely has something to do with something about who they are. And a lot of these crafts, when they do interact, like I said earlier, they some of them are pretty playful, and I think that they sometimes show personality, and they definitely can read people's minds when when you're asking them to do stuff. But when they're showing that much interaction with me, and they're showing personality, I always thought that if something shows personality, it must have a soul. That's what I believe. How do you feel?
I can see some truth in that. And I can hear myself, that's weird. But I have known of people that are soulless, and it sometimes depends on, how they're raised, nature, nurture, like where the mother is just like not, and the father as well, they're not showing that emotion, so the child never learns it, or perhaps they were loved, but they just end up being just evil, whatever they do. They have no emotion about anything, like no feeling. And it could be the frontal lobe or different things like that. But I think there are people born soulless, which is amazing because there's so many souls out there. But we had a friend, BTO. You knew BTO, right?
I probably did.
He was the same age as me. I'm 41, and he actually passed away this last year.
Oh.
Yeah, it was really terrible, really sad. And he comes along and he'll mess with our stuff sometimes, and he even showed up at my house and to Sandra as well. But, man, I'm kind of off track now. I don't even know where I was going.
That's fine.
Souls. Okay, so
right.
Yeah, I think some people are born without them for whatever reason it is. But I've seen auras, which I think shows a soul, like the light of the soul, on not only people, but trees and animals and different things like that. I think everything has a light inside of it or a soul, but there's some things that don't, and that's where you get that inert sort of evil thing going on.
Well, I hope the majority of the UFOs I see have good souls, because whatever these guys can do pretty much whatever they want in this sky. It's amazing. Some of the things that I've seen, though, I'll be around people, and I'll be around a few different people when I'm seeing these things, and some people will act like they can't see it or they cannot see it for some reason. Sometimes I think that these things have the ability to kind of press block on somebody, to be honest with you. Have you ever encountered the same thing? Where you're sitting around witnessing something?
Yeah, like with my husband and me and my two daughters. Like me and my two daughters were seeing it in actual life, but to my husband, it was portraying something different. So it's like got shields or something that is supposed to manipulate us to where we see a certain thing. But I think there are members of the human race, like you and I, that can actually see these things when others can't. It's kind of like, how open are you to these things? And you can actually train yourself to be more open to be able to see the paranormal and UFOs and such. I had a girl come to me, hey, I've never seen a ghost before, but I really want to. And so I told her, just be more open, don't be so structuralized and in that little box. Open your mind. And you can see a person walking by and it could be a spirit. She went to pick up her kid from daycare, and she actually saw an old lady in the backyard kind of playing with and watching the kids. And she went in and talked to the daycare lady and was like, hey, it's really nice that your grandma or great aunt or whoever that is out there helping you with your daycare. And she's like, well, what are you talking about? I'm the only one here. And she said, I saw this old lady in the backyard with the kids. And then she showed her a picture of her grandma, and it was her. So it was pretty cool. She contacted me like 2 months later and was like, hey, guess what I saw? So that was pretty awesome. You can open yourself up to it. It's just a matter of practice, like practicing opening up and practicing different things. I can't meditate because I can't stay still that long, but I can zone out.
I can't meditate either. And, the majority of these things, when I started seeing them, starting in 2009, I had just started, I had a series of back surgeries over a 3-year period. And so for this 3-year period, I was kind of just chilling out in the backyard watching the sky, I wasn't meditating. I wasn't asking them to come out to me. It was just they started to show up, which was really wild to me.
Yeah, I've always had an obsession with the sky, whether it's, sunrise, middle of the day, sunset, nighttime, starting when I was a kid because my mom died. And of course, you think about angels. My mom's an angel now and she's up on a cloud. And every time a sunset or sunrise I'd say my mom painted that because she was a painter. But yeah, I think it was because of that I am so obsessed with looking up. I look up all the time, and I actually got a really cool picture of a cloud that looks like perhaps a UFO like stuffed itself in there because it's got little poof marks around it. Mooney had said, hey, that looks like an angel that exploded. But yeah, there's so many amazing things you see in the sky. I was trying to capture, because you're not supposed to look with the naked eye, but I used my cell phone for a solar eclipse, and I actually got something silver shooting by really fast. I know it's on my computer, I just got to look it up again. But that's the only video of UFO craft I've ever gotten, and it's just a fraction of a second.
I've captured a lot of stuff because I was so bored sitting in the backyard just looking up. I just started recording, and one time I recorded one that did pretty well on YouTube, and the guys from Faked or Fact called me up, and they're like, hey, can we do your video? And I was like, nice. Yeah. And the next week they went out of business. So that was my one chance to have a video on TV.
Damn it all. Did you know you can actually send your stuff to like Chills or Nuke's Top 5, or I think Slapped Ham is another one. If you send your videos into them, they might be interested and show it if it goes along with other stuff that they're trying to put out. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. He went out of business. You're like, it's a bad omen.
Yeah. Well, I wish I would have got a chance to be on that. It would have been fun. I really liked that show. Because I would like to try to prove something. If I'm wrong, am I right or am I wrong? I'm not out here trying to bogus anybody. I don't want anything from anyone. I have nothing to sell. I don't really give a crap what anybody thinks, to be honest with you. I'm just trying to share my story and let other experiencers know that, there's other people out there seeing the same thing they are. So
that's awesome. That's why I like shows like this, and, Dave's got his show. That's the very first and only other podcast I listen to, except for I would check out Art Bell. And when I heard about him, I hadn't never heard about him before a few years ago. And I started listening to him. Every time I'd fall asleep, just that voice, I don't know, it would always lull me to sleep. I always fall asleep to paranormal stuff, whether it's YouTube or shows or whatnot. But just to have that area for people to go to feel like they're not alone, because there's so many of us out there that are experiencing this, and to have other people out there with similar experiences or just having experiences at all makes you feel less crazy, because a lot of times people do feel like they're going crazy due to this stuff.
Absolutely. And that's why, if you'll see me on chat rooms, joking around a lot, I have to laugh about this stuff, because if I were to sit there and just dwell on it, I probably would get nuts from it, because it's just it's a perplexing, complicated, unique situation that nobody has any answers for it. I love when all these people come on YouTube and they know who the aliens are and they know what the UFOs are, and I've seen them quite a bit, and I don't know anything other than they're up there.
Yeah. But I love to hear about it. And, BTO used to say, nobody really cares anyways. Like I do. I want to hear your perspective, because I'm learning from everything around me. I learned as a Marine, be aware of your surroundings always. How many times have you caught something out of the corner of your eye as far as shadows and such? Even though you're staring forward, I'm still looking sideways.
I definitely love hearing all the news stories. I love hearing people's experiences. Those are great, It's just the old rehash stuff that I'm getting tired of. I'd rather hear people like me, that hide out and have had all these experiences for a long time that just want to come out and start saying it. This is real and this is what's happening.
Yeah, and it's like with my show, I think I'm kind of addicted to doing it because I do love hearing other people's stories. And I don't know, a lot of times I have big names, a lot of times I have no names. To me, it really doesn't matter. I just love to hear your stories. And I want to share that with others so they don't feel so alone. But yeah, that's like an addiction to me, the paranormal. Like, I want to hear more. I love ghost stories.
I love it. When I was a little kid, I used to sit 2 feet away from my black and white and TV and watch In Search Of. And my mom would always say, hey, get the hell away from the TV. You're going to go blind.
It's bad for your eyes.
And I was like, whatever. I'm sitting right here in front of this thing watching because I was glued to it. They had every story, Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, Amelia Earhart, every mystery. That's what's great about the paranormal. It's such a mystery. There's nothing boring about it. You could tell when someone's full of crap and they're just like, well, whatever. But there's so many amazing stories out there that just don't have an answer. That's why I love it. And UFOs are one of these things. And hopefully one day I get the answer for it. It'd be great.
Yeah, watching YouTube because I don't have DirecTV on my phone anymore. So I watch YouTube paranormal things to go to sleep. And there, like you said, there's so many people out there that are just full of it. Like they're totally acting and faking the whole time. But there's others, there's different degrees, trying to be genuine, but still trying to over-dramatize it. And then others that are really in it for being in it. But they have millions of followers. And I'm just like, holy crap, I can barely get 100. What are you doing? Maybe they like the whole act, the whole horse and pony show.
That's the thing. It's like you really have to have a horse and pony show, I guess, to get attention. But that's fine with me. If it takes me 100 years to get my story out, I'm fine with it. As long as I'm doing it properly and with some ethics and some moral and just being truthful about it. I have nothing to bullshit up. Sorry, I have nothing to lie about.
Oh,
I have
that's
nothing
all right.
to gain from this. So
feel free to speak freely.
I take it seriously. I really love the subject, and I would really love to get an answer one day.
Me too, but I think major answers that we want to know, we won't know until we're there. But otherwise, there's a lot of interesting things that do come through. But on that note, we have to go to our first musical break. And on this break, we have some new releases from Miss Michaelin Hay from Ontario, Canada. A first break, we have Michaelin Hay with Collapse. We have Gravity from Krakow, Poland with Throw You Away and Take a Walk in My Shoes, as well as Fred Johnson III, which for some reason is really one of my favorites, with After Dark, you guys. He's from Canyon County, California. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this musical break.
Where'd you go? You're running perfect date, yeah. Living at the dark, I search lonely streets to find hidden shadows in the dark. It doesn't matter what I say. Secret homicides arranged in a series of pursuits. No matter what I say, after dark, I gave her base because she had the range. I knew she was the one that never could go home again. Plastic life by limo seats. I don't know why I can't control this urge to hurt again. Yeah, living at the dark, I search lonely streets to find hidden shadows in the dark. It doesn't matter what I say. Change it till it's done. Murder forever after. No matter what I say, after dark. Feeling meant to repugnant and feel. In hiding place with days of December. Concerning works furnished in the bandage. It doesn't matter what I say. It really doesn't. No matter what I say, after dark. It doesn't matter what I say. Secret homicides arranged in a series of pursuits. No matter what I say, change it in the stuff. Murder forever after. It doesn't matter what I say. Rude and fatal, lacking the hint of conscience. No matter what I say, after dark.
So I walk down the street, thinking all the things you said you need. Why don't you tell me, baby, how do you feel? So I walk down the street, thinking all the things you said you need. Why don't you tell me, baby, how do you feel? Don't you take a walk? Why don't you take a walk? In my shoes, why don't you take a walk? Before you tell me what to do, why don't you take a walk? Why don't you take a walk? In my shoes, why don't you take a walk? Before you tell me what to do. No, it's easy, you tell me what to do. Have you ever stopped to think all the things that I've been through? No, it's easy, you tell me what to do. Have you ever stopped to think all the things that I've been through? Don't you take a walk? Don't you take a walk? In my shoes, don't you, baby, take a walk? Before you tell me what to do, don't you take a walk? Don't you take a walk? In my shoes, don't you, baby, take a walk? Before you tell me what to do.
Welcome back, and thanks so much for joining us tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Tonight we have Dave, a.k.a. Gutter Gawker.
Yep, it's a weird name, I know.
How exactly did you get that name?
So I told you I work for a major airline, and I work at O'Hare Airport, and excuse me, my job just started giving all the employees internet, and so there's a lot of downtime at my job waiting for aircraft, and so we'd play on the internet, and of course I'd be on YouTube, and I'd always be looking at, weird paranormal stuff on YouTube, and I always wanted to reply to people. I didn't have an account set up at the time, and my best friend Jeff, he's kind of like a hilljacker. He's from Atlanta. And he's like, "Hey man, you're always looking at the gutter, man. You're a real gutter gawker." And I was like, "Oh, that's kind of a cool name. I'm just going to use that." That was back in 2008, so that was before I started seeing UFOs. But I kind of just stuck with it. I didn't want to use a different name when I first uploaded UFO videos. So, and plus, I wanted my privacy, like I had mentioned before. So I stuck with it.
Yeah, and I assume the only reason that you're Gutter Gawker on Facebook is because Gutter Gawker was already taken?
No, they wouldn't let me use Gutter. I had to use Gutter. And there's a funny story to Gutter, though, because I like different podcasts. And there was one guy, I'm just going to say his show real quick, Manny Moonraker, who would always call me. He would see my name in the chat room, and he'd be like, "Hey, Gutter's here, Gutter." He'd always call me Gutter because he thought I was some German dude from Germany. And the good thing is that when I went up to finally get on Facebook, people were asking me. I just had to use Gutter. So it started out as Gutter, that's my stuff. But for Facebook, it's Gutter.
Nice. Wow, it's crazy that Facebook wouldn't let you use that. That's insane.
I guess it's not a real first name.
I guess. Who would name their kid that? I've seen several names like that. One in particular, this lady that not only went to my church back in the day, but she ended up being my apartment manager. Her last name was Butt, B-U-T-T. And they actually named their poor son Harry Butt.
No.
You guys are fucked up. Like, what the hell is wrong with you? You're going to name your son Harry Butt. Like, do you want him to be bullied throughout school? Poor guy.
Poor kid. Yeah, hope he gets a good nickname.
Right? No wonder he turned out to be an asshole.
Harry Butt.
So what was your MOS in the Marine Corps?
So my uncle was a Chicago cop, and then he became a U.S. Marshal, and he was telling me, here's the steps you need. I wanted to be a marshal like him, and he's like, here's the steps you need to do. You go to your college, you get your criminal whatever, and then join the military and get the MOS, the military police. And so I joined up to be a MP, and they closed down the school on me at the time, and they said I was going to have to wait another 6 months to a year to get into that school. So I was kind of like, hey, Uncle, I'm just going to kind of get through whatever school I can, then get out. And so I just said, hey, I'll take whatever job. And they're like, okay, you're a combat cook from now on. So I was a 3381. I was a combat cook.
Holy shnikes. So did you go overseas and such?
I went to MCRD San Diego, and then I went to the training right after the boot camp, MCT, I think it's called.
Yeah, Marine Combat Training.
In Pendleton. And then I went to MOS school, which was in Camp Lejeune, Camp Hashmark Johnson in, I think it's Camp Lejeune.
Camp Geiger, Camp Lejeune.
Yeah, and then I actually liked it. I didn't like the heat and humidity of, the Southeast, but I liked the school and I liked the people. I graduated #1 from my class, and they gave me a meritorious promotion. What chow hall do I want to work in? And I was like, I'm going to go to Southern California. So they sent me back to Camp Pendleton at the School of Infantry I was cooking for like 3,000 people every day. It was crazy.
Holy shnikes. Did it get really hot in there?
Oh yeah, it was brutal hot, but it wasn't as hot until they gave me like a corporal, and then they said, do you want to go anywhere? And I was like, I want to go to Japan. I want to go check out Japan. So they sent me to my own chow hall in Japan. Well, it wasn't my own, but I was cooking for like officers and generals and admirals and stuff.
Nice.
And they liked the way I cook, so they would stick me in southern Japan in front of a grill all day, a barbecue grill. So I'd be out there sweating my butt off constantly in southern Japan, cooking these guys barbecue food constantly. But it was fun. I love the Marine Corps. It was a good time.
Yeah. I actually went in because I was in a relationship really early in my life. I think I was 16, and it was very abusive. They take you away from your friends and your family. So I really felt like I had nowhere to go, even though I did end up moving out from his house to my dad's house. But I'm like, where am I going to go from here? So I was sitting there kind of slouched down on the couch, watching TV one day, and then I saw the Marine Corps commercial where he's climbing up that plateau and he gets to the top, and I'm like, dude, I'm going to do that. So at first the Navy guys started showing up unannounced at my house, and I'm like, for sure I'm not going to go Navy because this guy is totally stalking me and making me feel uneasy. And we have Air Force Base here in Colorado Springs, but I felt like I needed something, like, even though I felt like I was at rock bottom anyway, so I'm like, might as well let them tear me down the rest of the way and then build myself back up to what I need to be. And it was really good for me. The only thing that really pissed me off was I signed up to be an aviation electrician so I could have a good job when I get out. And then partially through combat training, they call out your MOS. You come and get your papers, and they made me crash, fire, search, and rescue. So I was basically a firefighter that would jump out of airplanes. But I never made it to my MOS school. The very first hump that I did in combat training, I almost fell on my face. My foot, where my jungle boot would go across, that little strap there, fractured. And I kept going on it, took it off that night. The squid came up, the medical guy, and he's like, if you want to finish instead of starting all over, you better keep this boot on. So I did. I kept going. As soon as I graduated from combat training, I went back to the medical facility, and I was later on told by my sergeants and such there that I should have waited till I got to my MOS school because there was no way I was getting out of there, and I never did. So I did do my boot camp in Parris Island and then my combat training in Camp Geiger, Camp Lejeune. Did you have to ever deal with Mount Motherfucker?
Oh yeah, we did it all.
Yeah, you were training on the West Coast.
Yeah, I was in Camp Pendleton, right? Yeah. The Gauntlet, I think they called it. That's what they called it in Camp Pendleton. We had to make through the Gauntlet. But I saw that happen to a lot of people, unfortunately, in the Marine Corps. I was upset by that. There was a lot of good guys that I knew that they would make it to a certain point, and then they'd either break something or fracture something or dislocate something, and they're getting the medical discharge, which is unfortunate. But there was one guy I remember really vividly from boot camp. This guy named Bracken. He was the smallest, scrawniest looking dude. He had like a the Dumb and Dumber haircut,
the bowl cut.
And we were all in formation. Right after you get off the bus from the airplane, you're at the depot, and the drill instructor looked up and saw him. He's like, "Oh my God, son, what in the hell are you?" And he's like, "Oh," and he's like, "What's that smell?" And he's like, Bracken's like, "I'm sorry, sir, but a baby puked on me on the plane."
Oh no!
Oh man, Bracken used to get it all day long.
Bracken, Bracken.
The drill instructors used to mess with him constantly. They would hide live rounds in his his locker, and they'd just say, "All right, locker inspection, foot locker inspection." Dump everybody's stuff on the ground, and he'd run up to Bracken and be like, "What's this?" Trying to make him break and freak out. But he got through all that. He passed. He graduated. But we went to MCT together, and we were going through these humps. That's where they're really training you with weapons and stuff. And I saw this sergeant come up, and they're like, "Come on, Bracken, move it." He was like a little guy. And the guy pushed him, and he ended up pushing him down a hill and breaking his legs.
What the fuck?
I was like, oh, my God, poor dude. He made it so far, and now he's got to go. Terrible. Poor Bracken, if you're out there, I miss you, buddy. He was a good dude.
Yeah, I hope you're doing good. That sucks.
He was funny.
We actually had a couple people when we were in boot camp fall back into our platoon, and there was this one chick. She used to piss me off, and I actually narked her out one time and got in really big trouble for it. But we'd have to get online, and you know how your sandbags are hanging there, and you got your footlocker and everything, and we're all at attention, and she's hiding behind her sandbag, and she's eating her strawberry shortcakes or her Nutter Buddies or whatever, and just being totally unsat, like out of line. You are really fucking up here, and you're disrespecting our platoon. So I called her out on it one time, and then I had to hit the parade deck and do some rifle IPT and stuff, which rifle IPT for me was the worst. But yeah, it's insane what you get in trouble for, but you're supposed to stick together as a group, even though this person sucks. You gotta all work together to make it, basically.
Oh yeah, the Marine Corps is no joke. You know, they really try to beat down and build back up for sure. You know, I was kind of used because my dad was a Marine and my brother was a Marine. My grandfather was in World War I. I think he was in the Army. He was a private. So I was used to kind of like the regimented military sort of upbringing, and I played a lot of contact sports and regular sports. But when I got the Marines, it was nothing like what they were telling me. You know, it was a lot more discipline, I'll tell you that. Which is a good thing because it taught me a lot of discipline in life, for sure.
Yeah. Do you still vividly remember your drill instructors and will never forget them?
Yes, I do, as a matter of fact. I can't remember their names, but I pictured their faces. There was one guy that hated me. He always had to punch me in the face. One time I had not shaved or something, like I missed a spot. And, man, did this guy go off on me for... Oh, man, I was terrified of this guy. Thought he was going to kill me for missing a patch on my face. Like, oh, boy. You guys mean business.
That's insane.
I never made a mistake again. Go ahead.
Yeah, you're kind of breaking up a little bit. I got in trouble repeatedly because of my hair. So my hair had always been really long, except for when I was like 12 or 13. I decided to cut it short like my mom to try to make some sort of connection. But when I was on my way, I met this girl named Sosi. She was a Navajo girl, and we picked her up in Flagstaff, Gallup, or somewhere like that, and then we flew to boot camp together, and we're actually in the same platoon. And the drill instructors actually ended up calling her Sosi the Robot because drill instructor Sergeant Leatherman was like, Sosi, what do you feel right now? And she said, whatever you want me to feel, ma'am. And she's like, what? Are you a stinking robot or something? So from there on out, they called her Sosi the Robot. But my hair, I don't know if it's the native Cherokee gene in me or what, but it would grow so fast. I cut it to just length, thinking it'd be easier because I grew up a tomboy. I didn't know how to braid or do my hair or anything like that, and I didn't know that we could work together to do it, so I decided to whack it off. But it grew so fast, I had to cut it 3 times within 3 months because it kept going below my collarline. So that's what I caught a lot of flack for. Like, I can't help how fast my hair grows, but okay, send me back to my haircut.
What was the girl's name? Sophie the Robot?
Yeah, Sosi. It was Tsosie, Sosi.
Do you remember the Jetsons? They used to have a Rosie the Robot.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where they got it from.
Yeah, Leatherman, she was a mulatto. She was like maybe 6'5". She was super tall. And she'd always say, good, great. And then drill instructor Sergeant Ingham, she was a short little black chick, and she reminded me of a Doberman Pinscher. She'd get in your face like this and not ever move her teeth. She'd just have her teeth clenched together. And then our senior drill instructor, Clarence, she would always stare up at the sky while she's talking to you. She'd never make eye contact. Just like this. Like, are you okay?
You were lucky. You had some halfway decent ones. I had crazy ones. These guys always wanted to beat the crap out of someone for some reason. I was terrified.
Yeah, it was insane.
I just wanted, yes sir, no sir. Sorry.
This girl that was in our platoon, her husband signed up together, and he actually got out early. They were keeping water from people, and we actually had a couple people die that year from having water kept from them, which is ridiculous. But that was like their motivation. Here's your motivation. Everybody pour out your canteens. So they'd pour them out, and then they'd have to trek like how many more miles. So they'd, red flag weather, black flag weather, get overheated and such. But yeah, it's insane what they used to pull. One of the paranormal experiences I had in MRP was this private black was doing some sort of tank training, and he laid down in the prone position, and this tank ended up running over because it didn't see. but he had a Ouija board. We were passing it back and forth, and that was my very first and only experience on a Ouija board. But it was pretty interesting. But it was very sad how he lost his life in training like that. Stuff like that happens all the time.
So you guys were making contact on the Ouija board from a private that had died, or that had died?
Yeah, he'd come through. When I got on there, I was taught, because I was raised at the age of 7, I was baptized into the LDS church, but I was raised never to use Ouija boards and not play D&D, which I do play D&D. I love it. But I used a Ouija board and wanted to talk to my mom. It's like, can I talk to my mom? And it went to no, and I was like, well, F you, I'm going to go take a shower. And I came out. This was during Hurricane Bonnie. The Ouija board was left on my rack and everybody else was gone. I didn't know you're not supposed to get on there by yourself, but I decided I was going to try again, and I had a really awesome experience. My mom first started off saying, tell Gary, Kathy, Greg, John, and your dad I'm okay. Everything's okay. Everything's going to be okay. And then throughout the discussion, she said could be anywhere she wanted, anytime she wanted, and she's basically omnipresent. She could be with us anytime we needed her. She was basically, which is cool.
That's awesome. Like I said earlier, I always ask, these orbs that fly over my parents, okay, do they miss me? There was one time I was laying in bed. I used to have a condo park. It was on the 6th floor, top floor. It had a good, decent view, and bed. And my parents, when they passed away, I took some of the furniture because I liked it, and they had this awesome set of bedroom furniture that everybody loved. It was like a super cool set from like the 50s or something. It was a really designer pair. But beside that, I had left my laptop on top of this dresser one night. And I went to bed and I was saying to myself, it was one of those times where you're like, hey, Mom, Dad, hope you're okay. And I'm praying for you. And I was like, I miss you guys. My laptop, which was closed, it had to be turned on because it was flat for quite a bit. It turned on by itself, and it turned to the point of some show, and it said, we miss you too, and it turned off. It was that fast. It's something about the electronics that the ghosts love to use to relay their messages.
It's very interesting. Like, have you used the different cell phone apps? I think some I've had really good experiences with, but for the most part, it's hard for the other side to manipulate it and get stuff out of it. My favorite tool is dowsing rods, and my granny, when I was a kid, taught me how to douse with a hickory stick for water. But I think I was 26, maybe 27, when I first laid my hands on an actual pair of dowsing rods. And basically it's made out of a big pin that they cut in half, and they put the copper rod through there, and the energy of the entity or spirit is supposed to be able to manipulate a yes and no. Not only can it connect you to emotions or have evidence, you can go through the alphabet to find the name, location, different things like that. Numbers. It's pretty interesting. But that's my favorite tool in my kit.
I don't use any apps, and I don't have any tools. I kind of experience things as they come along. I wish I can find a tool that would help enhance the experiences that I have, but other than a video camera, there's nothing much else I can use. I did pick up some EVPs one time, but it's nothing to write home about.
Right.
I remember the night. You want to hear about the mom died?
Yeah, and maybe you were right earlier about your camera causing interference with the internet because your sound is breaking up.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Well, I had moved to a different section place, so let me move back where I was, and maybe that will help.
Okay.
Let's see if this works.
It's bad, but it's noticeable.
All right, let's see if I can come back up here again. See how it sounds. I guess there's too much electronics around me over there.
Could be. Sorry. Could be
No,
the owner.
right. Is it a little bit? You never know. Is this better? Does it sound better?
Yeah, so far so good.
All right. This is the best I'm going to get. Sound like it works.
Okay, so you're about to tell us a story.
So, my mom was sick back in 2014. She had liver cancer, and it was pretty fast. It was one of those cancers where it's like, phew, it's going through you like wildfire. But she was sick and had to take her to a hospice in Brookfield, Illinois. It's right next to the Brookfield Over. Everybody's heard of it. It's really big, beautiful, in near Chicago. But my mom was in the hospice, and family was in and out. I was the last one there. And I tell her she was really sick. And I went outside to take a break for a minute, and I having a cigarette, and I was chilling out, and I started to cry, and I was like, hey, God, could you please send an angel here, take my mom up to heaven? And over the hospice was this big, beautiful orange ball of light. It was bigger than any orb that I've ever seen. And it was kind of radiant like the sun. It was showing like glares of light, and it was drifting there. It was hovering, and it just kind of was like looking at me, and it was getting like a little bigger. Then it would just slowly move away from me, and then it kind of just drifted into the sky. And I was changed by it, but I was just thinking about my mom, and so I went back inside, and I was like, hey, Mom, pretty soon you're going to be an angel soon. You're going to have beautiful things. And I was like, if you want to come back as my grandkid one day, that's cool too. I'm always happy to see you, Mom. And I was like, I'm going to go home for the night, and I'll see you in the morning. And I was like, I'm going to stay here. She said, like, no, I'll go home. I'll be fine. And I went home, went to sleep, and I woke up to this big, bright flash of light. And the next thing you know, my brother's calling me, and he's like, hey, Mom died. And I was like, oh, no. It was just a weird set of experiences that went down with her passing. Seeing this light, seeing the flash, getting the call. But the weird part of that, the funny part is, when my granddaughter was born, Penelope, she was born with my mom was a ginger. She was like Irish. She's like, her parents were off the boat Irish. And my mom had this big, bright orange head of hair. And when my granddaughter was born, Penelope, she's born, my son's half Mexican. His wife's dark-haired. My granddaughter was born with this big orange patch of hair on her head. And she was a splitting image of my mom. And when she was about 2 or 3, she started calling me David out of the blue. Like, nobody calls me David except for my mom. There's a little Penelope calling him David, and there's always been a bond between her and I, me and Amanda. So I think it's, could be my mom reincarnated. Who knows? I believe it.
It could be. There's some really strange things happen. I had this little girl with blonde hair, white dress, and she had those that was following me around. And when I first noticed her, my husband seeing her following me, I was pregnant with this daughter who's 5. So well, maybe it's just Lily following me around. Don't worry about it. It's nothing bad. But after she turned just a month or so ago, my kids, my littlest ones, were playing outside, and they were up the stairs, and they stopped, and their jaws dropped, and they're like, Mom, there's a little girl following you, and she's got pigtails, and she's got like strawberry blonde colored hair. And I turned around, I couldn't see her, but they both could. And so that was like, well, that's not Lily, that's something else. So it makes me wonder who exactly that is.
I wish I had ghosts. I had more experiences like that. I wish I had more validation with the other side. Would really love to see those things. I think terrified ghosts, though, because when I was a little kid, I was always watching all these scary movies that ghosts are going to scare the crap out of you. So I've always been terrified of them. I guess that you've always been sort of at peace with them since the beginning, huh? You were never really worried about ghosts.
Well, it did scare the crap out of me. Like you were saying, like as kids, we'd get together with our mom and dad, and on the weekends we'd have popcorn and scary movies, and the paranormal was a really big part of our life. Just because it was normal didn't mean I wasn't scared. Like I was really, really scared, and that's why I have issues sleeping still to think. Especially since October, I've had tinnitus in my ears, and sometimes really loud to the point where I have to fall asleep with videos on my phone, but I prefer to have scary movies or paranormal TV on YouTube or whatnot on, and I'll fall asleep to that, or Art Bell, like I was saying earlier. Different paranormal things just kind of me to peace, because I don't know, I guess I'm peace with it. I find peace in the fact that there is something on the other side. Instead of being in a box, being eaten by worms and bugs and such, we can actually travel with our energy through different dimensions and up or visit our loved ones, like whatever we want to do, basically, as far as my mom was saying. But it's pretty intriguing.
Do you think there's an evil side to all this? Do you think there's anything demonic with anything in regards to UFOs? Or I know there is with ghosts, but do you think there's anything with UFOs that might be evil?
Well, I think just the history of it, as far as seeing these different ancient paintings with, wars going on in the background, it's not for no reason. I think some of them mean us harm. I've heard from people there's a plethora, like beyond 12 different races of these aliens, but perhaps there's good ones that could have seeded us or are looking after us, and there's others that mean us harm. So I think there's the good and bad, just as with anything. You have to have basically a counterpart.
Ever seen a demonic entity?
I've seen little goblin gremlin guys. The closest thing for anybody to make a picture in their head is a gremlin. The slick-skinned, big-eared gremlins, but their ears were a little shorter. And I was actually staying at my grandparents' house. My dad sent us out for a visit and then never sent for us again. So we lived there for a good year and a half, and it was always pretty quiet, except for different, random noises throughout the house. But all of a sudden, just one particular night, this light came through my window, and you could see it flickering, and you could see different images, like shadows moving through the light, and I began hearing chattering and chanting and drum beat, and I crept down my bed. At the end of my bed was a window, and I looked out the window, and in the chicken yard, which is the fence line is about 6 feet away from my window. The fire was about 6 more feet from there, so it was about 12 feet away. You could see these little gremlin, shiny-skinned, goblin, gremlin-looking things dancing around the fire. Some had spears, some had daggers, some had drums, and they're chattering and chanting, and I can't understand what they're saying. And all of a sudden, the drums, everything stop all at once, and I just slam myself back in my bed. As I'm doing that, I could see them kind of turning my direction. I have the sheets over, the nose region, right below the eyes, staying as still as I can. They come in, I could hear them scratching and scratching, chattering back and forth to each other, and then they didn't see anything, so I crept down the way, which is where my brother was, and he, after that night, started having night terrors where he'd run through the house every night. He'd run out of his bedroom, past my grandparents' bedroom, into the living room, and back into the pantry room, which was right next to me and my brother's room, into the kitchen. There was a little step in the kitchen on the way back that he'd always trip over, and it was only about 2 inches, maybe an inch to 2 inches tall. He'd trip over every time. He'd scramble, get back up, and run. The very, very last time this happened, my grandparents came out, and they actually grabbed a hold of him on each side and looked in the direction that the little, some people call them kobolds, but when I looked online at kobolds, they look more like gnomes. These were like little goblin minion thingies. But they caught him. As soon as they caught him, he collapsed in my grandparents' arms, and then he didn't have night terrors anymore. But after that, he was in trouble all the time. Also after that, I think it was the very next night, I had a dream that my bed was tilting up and up and up, and there was a hole at the end of it, and I was sliding down my bed. The baseboard to my bed was like a foot or so below the mattress, and that's the only thing that I could grab onto to not fall into the hole of fire and brimstone. I woke up, I was at the end of my bed, and I thought, how crazy that dream was, and how very detailed it was. Like, I could still smell the smoke. And then I noticed that the smoke started to smell sweeter than like the sulfur smell. It smelled like a cherry tobacco. And I looked over in my doorway, which we didn't have doors. I had a lace curtain. My brother had a door. I had a yellow lace curtain that was tied back. And I could see a black figure in the doorway. And then he lifted his cigar. He took a puff off of it, and I could see his face and what he was wearing. And he was wearing black tuxedo with a bow tie, and his hair was slicked back, and he was like the most gorgeous person or entity or whatever I had ever seen. And I knew right away who it was. I knew it was Satan himself. Like, it was the devil. And so, having nightmares all my life, my dad told me, say, God stands before me, Satan falls behind. I didn't even say it out loud. I said it in my head, and just like that, I was out. I didn't have to deal with it.
That's amazing. I would hate to meet the devil.
Yeah, years later. Yeah, I was. And years later, I found out from my dad, because we all came back together. My 3 older siblings, when my mom died, went with their dad. Me and my little brother went with our dad, and then to our grandparents. But we all got together as a family, except for my oldest brother. He always had a thing against my dad, which he now realizes was not good. He had a misunderstanding. But my dad, when I told this story, because we're all hashing out all our ghost stories and having a good time, and I told the story, and my dad turned white as a sheet, and I was like, Dad, are you okay? Like, what's wrong? He's like, your mother told me the very same story. Well, I'm staying in her room at this time at my grandparents'. And he said not only did he show up to her, but he was right next to her bed, and they had a very full and lengthy conversations, but several times. I'm just very grateful that he's getting further away. Like for me, he wasn't next to my bed. He's in the doorway. And I'm hoping for my kids, if they ever experience it, he'll be farther away. But I let them know what to say, what to do. That worked for me. So if that ever happens, they'll be prepared. But yeah, it was really scary. He also showed up again. My sister saw him right before my mom got in her car accident. She wasn't going to take any of us with her. She dropped me off at the place where my sister was. And the whole time over there, she was white-knuckled holding the steering wheel saying, please don't let me die. Please don't let me die. She didn't want to get in a car accident. She knew if I was in there, I wouldn't make it. But my sister, being a teenager at the time, was very, very independent and wanted to have her way. So my mom took her and her friend. She said at the corner, which was not a mile from our house, there's a little market there that we pick up like those little chalk candy lollipops or the chalk candy necklaces or whatnot. He was right there on that corner where they had put out to go on the highway there in Siloam Springs. She said he was standing next to a stretch limousine wearing a tuxedo, hair slicked back, and smoking a cigar. And so I think he was there to collect my mother. And that's why I think that he appeared to myself and my sister, because he's looking for brides. He doesn't have just one. He wants multiples. And luckily I'm not one of them. But I think my mom could.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Amazing stuff. So scary. I would hate to mess with those ghosts. They're evil for sure. I have his, I don't, like you said, you have dreams about stuff, and sometimes they're nightmares and stuff. I don't usually have nightmares, but I will have like precognitive, what they called, foretelling dreams.
Yeah.
Like, I'll definitely have those. One time my son went out and bought a motorcycle and I kept having dreams. He was on a motorcycle and he got, and I called him. I was like, did you buy a motorcycle, man? And he's like, how the hell did you know that? I was like, I kept having dreams, man. You got to get rid of it today. And he actually did, because he's like, I couldn't believe you, motorcycle. But another interesting dream I had where my dad had a vivid dream about bugs. When it was something like watch the bugs. And that was the day of his wake. And so I was engaged at the time to a Ruby, and by my 99, used car was 99 PM. I was pretty proud of it. And we were cruising to the funeral, and I watched this butterfly fly out there, and it flew over the stuff and just disappeared. And I was like, holy shit, did you see that? And oh, that's kind of weird. And so we went into the service, and we come to the funeral home, and my dad's casket's getting put in the hearse. And there's a group of butterflies flying around, and my mom was like, wow, you see that? There's a lot of butterflies. So then we ended up going to the church, and they have a mass for him, and they do the service at the church, and they bring the casket back out and load it on the hearse. And at this point, there's even more butterflies, and my mom's like, holy shit, look at all these butterflies everywhere. But the funny thing is, we take the drive all the way to the south side. My dad's buried at this St. Casimir's. It's a Lithuanian place on the south side. We get to the plot where he's at, and all the headstones in front of the plot where he's going to be into are covered with butterflies. There were so many butterflies. I couldn't believe it. They were everywhere. It was like a of them, and they were just sitting there like it was a show. It was just, and my mom was just like, oh, man, these things have been following us the whole time. And what was weird is that I had the dream the night before. It said, watch the bugs. So there's something about on there with it. So every time I see a butterfly now, I think of my dad.
That's awesome. Even though I'm a Marine, no tattoos whatsoever. I've been tempted, but I've never got one. The only one I really wanted was 3D butterfly. I lost that when I was 16 years old. I couldn't find the picture again that depicted what exactly I wanted. But like you're saying, experiences with your parents passed over. My dad was still alive. I had a dream about my mom about a month or two after she passed, and walking through this park on a paved sidewalk, and there's grass and there's trees on each side, and I can see this figure in the distance, and as I get closer and closer, I can tell it's my mom. And generally I'd run towards her, because I missed her so much. But it was funny, we came together at a walking pace where there was a bench, so we both sat down, and She told me again, and that was before the whole Ouija board experience. She told me she was okay. Everybody knew she's okay. And we talked a little bit about different things. And then she said, I'm sorry, that's what Mom always says, but I gotta go. And then this white room appeared. It was really weird. It was like walls, windows. You could see people sitting down and standing up. And she walked towards the room and went through the door. And then I didn't see her again until about, I believe I was 7 years old. And I was working at the Model K in Ozark, Arkansas, and I had seen my dad sitting at this, one of the tables on the side. And I'm waiting tables over there and take his order and look over. My mom's there. And I couldn't say anything to her because it had been so many years. It had been about 10 years. And all I could do was like smile and kind of happy cry because I was so happy to see her. And all she would was smile back at me. I woke up and I have tears running down my face, still sobbing as if I was in my dream. And then I realized that it's Mother's Day. So that day I decided to go up to the cemetery. And I believe my mom appeared to me as a monarch butterfly. And then years later, after my dad passed, he was 49 and 2 months old. He had basically slowly killed himself with alcoholism due to losing my mom. He appeared to me as well as monarch butterfly several times. So later on, I talked to my sister about it, and I was like, I want to get a monarch butterfly on my foot where the other half is your foot, and then we can do that with other random members of our family. But monarch butterfly or birds, my mom's come to me as not only a red-breasted robin, but a magpie. That's the one that really creeped me out. It was just like staring at me until I threw food to it, but I knew it was my mom. At that time, I discovered some things about her that she had done, and I was really angry. So she appeared to me as a magpie, which is a black and white with this electric blue colored wing. But it's interesting how they do come through not only as spirits, but as different animals or creatures.
Definitely. There's some synchronicity there from the other side, and they're letting you know that they're there, however way that you're going to, take something from it, I guess. You'll see the butterfly, and like, that's what I had about or thought about, and put two together, and that's the other side talking to you. I really believe that.
Yeah, and do you get a different feeling, like a different energy when that does happen, that really does declare to you that is what is really happening?
It's funny that you say that, because I think when you're meant to see something like that, you're put in this kind of like path where like either it's or the angels and or whatever, they're pushing you where you need to be down this spot at the time. You really there really is a flow. There's a different feeling. It's a more flow. It's like you're meant to be there, and it's like life. You're a leaf on the river of life, and it's pushing you where it needs to be, and you're gonna see it. I agree with that. Yeah, it's a good way to put it, Tessa.
Sleepy saying in the chat room said, Dr. Krugerberg references the ETs do have an ability to control our perceptions, virtual reality of sorts. She has case studies of sightings, patients, daily witnessed by the experiencer, witnesses in the same room saw nothing sort. In the same area, he said he had a sighting in the sky, maybe 3 to 5 people would see it. Another example of controlling our perception.
Well, that's interesting. We were talking about that earlier, and like I said, there'll be witnesses around and people will see them, but there was one I remember specifically. I was in my backyard chilling, and my neighbor was cutting his grass, and his little granddaughter was in the backyard with him. And I looked up, and I saw this beautiful gold ball of light. It was in the middle of the daytime. It was pretty blue sky, and I'm looking up at this thing, and it's floating down towards us. And I go to him, say, "Hey, man, check this thing out." And I'm pointing right at it. It's right there in the sky. I'm looking at it. I could tell his granddaughter's looking at it, too. And he's like, "What about?" I don't see anything. What are you talking about? I don't see it. And I'm like, it's rare. Look at this thing. It's huge. And he's still like, no, I don't see anything. And he grabs his daughter and he walks away. But the funny thing is, later that night, I was walking through the gangway back to the house. His house was right next to mine. And I overheard him talking to his wife saying, "Oh my God, you know what I saw today in the backyard? It's this big ball of light." And I guess he didn't want to freak out his granddaughter or something by, not validating it. Clearly right there. People might just be in denial about it. They don't want to believe it, or they're scared to freak somebody else out that's around them, like a little child. So but I do in fact believe that some people are just booked from it. Yeah, good job, Steve. That's a great point.
That's true, and it's not only yourself doing it. Like some people get so scared they kind of close that shutter to that window or close the door to that doorway. But a lot of times it's the parents or grandparents or whoever else in your life saying, no, that's not real, that doesn't exist, and it makes you feel crazy, so you block it out and you move on. For people that have family that are accepting of it and they know it's real and they, try to teach you different things to deal with it, like, then your gift can get bigger and you can experience more. But I don't think it's too for anybody. You can open your mind at any time, or your perception or energy or whatever it may take. You all have the ability for certain gifts. And like you were saying earlier, like, you don't say it out loud really to these UFOs or whatnot going by. You telepathically. I've actually telepathic experiences, like, where I'm taking thoughts out of my husband or other people's heads, or even an experience I had with a shadow. And I don't know if it was alien or demonic. But my husband was playing for a bar. We were playing in the back band house in the back, and a lot of the rooms did not have windows. It's all made out of cinder block. And so the only light I could see into the room was under the doorway. And then all of a sudden, in the darkness, I saw this figure that was darker than the... And he comes up to my bedside, and he is talking to me, and he's telling me that he's going to have me, and I'm like, hell not. And he laughed, and when he did, you could see his teeth, and they were actually kind of glowing, and they were sharp, and they were white, sparkling, and there was stuff coming off of them. And he laughed, and he's like, yes, I will. And at that point, I had paralysis. Even though I hadn't gone to sleep, my body was paralyzed. And he leaned down, and he kissed me, and when he did, the shock went up my canine teeth, up into my brain, and down to my feet. And as soon as that shock finished, my feet were able to move. So I started to kick my feet frantically because I could not scream. Not only is your body frozen, your voice is frozen.
Yeah.
As soon as I was able to kick my feet, my husband was on his nap, and he turned around and saw this figure and grabbed me and pulled me towards him. And at that point, the paralysis on. But that was the scariest experience really I'd ever had with any entity. And I remember the next day going to work at the portrait studio, and I kept looking in my rearview mirror thinking I'm going to see this thing in my back seat or attached to my car or something. That's how powerful it felt to me. It was very scary.
If I were ever abducted, I would maybe say it was 2 times that I had sleep paralysis. It was both when I was a little kid, but I remember exactly what you're talking about vividly. You can't move. You can't scream. You just wake up, your eyes are open. It's the craziest thing. But when I was going through it, it felt like I was going through a giant MRI machine. Like whoosh, 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 whoosh. I was just hearing these real whooshy sounds like in a giant washing machine, to be honest with you, at first. That was the experiences. And another experience was I was hearing voices around me. It was, I could have sworn I was hearing voices around me, but both times I woke up just frozen in the bed and just terrified. It was crazy. I never had it again, thank God, but 2 times I definitely did. And like I said, I don't think I've ever been abducted, as far as I know. I don't have any memories of it. I've never been on a craft, as far as I know. I've never met an alien, as far as I know. I wish I could have a great conversation with an alien. That'd be wonderful, in my opinion.
Yeah, then
Maybe
we
one
can at
day.
least figure out what the hell they're up to. What the hell are you doing? But on that note, Dave, we do have to go to our second musical break. On this break, we have Prime Example, which Roy Washington and Jay are met with, Miss Carolyn Giles with Dancing Gene. We have Gravity from Krakow, Poland, My Last Goodbye. Roy Washington, which again is a part of Prime Example, from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, with Minnow. And then we have Fred Johnson III, Sugar. Guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this musical break. It really freaks me out, like,
scene. We can hit another club if that's your thing. We'll be partners in crime, you and me, as we ripping up floors like two dancing machines.
See you, Roy Washington, man. What's happening, man?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. They never say it in words, but in deeds wars declared. Justice is gone and the sight's none is spared. Especially the kingdom encased in melanin. But these suckers are weak.
kings and queens will ride again. Come on. Slackers with badges, the white sheets and the maggots. Watch them fall as I tag them because I'm better than average. A sharpshooter with words with my eye to the scope. Can they escape when I don the black cape? Is hell no. I'm a ninja for right, who can vanish from sight. Pick you off in the night, but still the Lord is my light. Perceiving all you see, the truth behind the scenes. Instead of jumping bandwagons, the light says believe in me. Cause you're a puppet, no doubt. 45th turned you out. Though I saw your lips moving, no sound came out. So I was sent from the heavenlies, born so you could find me. Swam the seeming stream, took flight during the 90s. Landed in grace, wrote a verse of hip-hop. Got with Jay and found the taste was smooth as butterscotch. We had hood love and money. Problems, they be on me, but we stayed in the flow. And had juice like Manolo.
They can try to oppress, you can try to impress. I'm just after success, none less, none less. You can look in my eyes, you can feel in my vibes. Clean down inside and it's so cinnamon. I got God on my side, I ain't worried about none. If it ain't about money, then it ain't about none. Laughing at my enemies, I know they see me coming. If it ain't subliminal, they can't even see me. Politics and abolish it. I'm here to raise the consciousness for every face and race up in this nation trapped in poverty. Diamond in the rough, need to cut, shape it and polish it. Bad thoughts cripple life, we can be an optimist. We can be an optimist, reconstruct apocalypse. Broke people always hating, mix me with that gossiping. Rose up in the concrete, rain and sun, I'm blossoming. My people need to be like kind of Velcro, then we conquer it. They can try to oppress, you can try to impress. I'm just after success, none less, none less. You can look in my eyes, you can feel in my vibes. Clean down inside and it's so subliminal. I got God on my side, I ain't worried about none. If it ain't about money, then it ain't about none. Laughing at my enemies, I know they see me coming. If it ain't subliminal, they can't even see me coming.
The 45th is a joke, and he's weak in disgust. He plans to divide, but there's no stopping us. If we have to fight, go toe to toe for our lives, we prevail and got sight, cause only light I recite. I blow my lyrics like a shotgun, camouflaged inside the tracks. Now watch the suckers run. I'm moving fast enough, heads up, now here I come. I designed 50 ways to make this murder fun. I spit the lyrical rain that coat the concrete, that give life and take form. Arise and walk the street. Am I the greatest to spit? Feel the spray and we'll see. Let it dry, all the lies and the truth will point to me. Even when surrounded by a million MCs, I'm the one under the sun who's the greatest of these. I got the Holy Ghost juking and tapping while I'm rapping. Sticking and moving like Roy Jones, I'll make it happen. Even animals move when the novelist is rocking. My doggy started barking, his ears just a flopping. Subliminally, I penetrate camps like an enemy. Flicking the lights, cancel sight, cause you're not seeing me.
They can try to oppress, you can try to impress. I'm just after success, none less, none less. You can look in my eyes, you can feel in my vibes. Live a king down inside and it's so subliminal. I got God on my side, I ain't worried about none. If it ain't about money, then it ain't about none. Laughing at my enemies, I know they see me coming. If it ain't subliminal, they can't even see me coming.
Waiting here on this cold, lonely night without you. The tension's overbearing. Wondering, are you coming back home again? To inspire fondness with love. Where did our love go wrong? My sugar. Why did I make you cry? Whispers flow through my mind when I think about you. That warm feeling our love go wrong, my sugar?
Welcome back, and thanks so much for joining us tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Tonight we have Dave, a.k.a. Gutter Gawker, on with us. Welcome back, and thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, Tessa, how are you?
Doing pretty good. It's been an awesome show.
Yeah, I'm doing good, too. I'm really enjoying it. Thanks for having me on. I wish I could see the chat room. I didn't put the chat room on tonight. I feel bad. If there's anybody in there that's saying hi or whatever, tell them I said what's up. I really enjoy people that go into paranormal chat rooms. There's some really smart people out there. There's some really funny people, but there's creative people out there. I think the chat rooms in paranormal are one of the greatest things of all time. So I really appreciate everybody that goes into those and talks, man. You guys are awesome.
Jocko Johnson was saying, "Hey, G."
Hey, Jocko, what's up, buddy? Jocko's a good dude. Jocko's really cool. Thank you, Jocko.
Yeah, he seems really cool so far. And Mooney was saying the show is very interesting, and he said it was just breaking up at times, but we got that figured out with the camera being turned off. It actually works better. And I'm looking, Blue Chicken is generally not here, but is here tonight, so it's good to see you, Blue Chicken.
Hey, Blue Chicken. Blue Chicken's funny. That's one of the funniest people. Him and Chuck Bam are hilarious.
I know, I miss them a lot. Chuck Bam comes in. I haven't seen Blue Chicken in a while, but I understand, different strokes for different folks, and we all go different places, and sometimes we can't get certain places at certain times, but anytime you guys want to come in, we would always love to have you.
Everybody has their own little personalities and how they want to do their shows, but we're all on the same team. Nobody knows all the answers, so the more we all team up and help each other out and talk and share ideas, I think the farther we're going to go in this field.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I've heard about para-unity, and a lot of people say it's a myth because people's egos are too big for somebody else to get, the standing ovation or whatnot for whatever they captured. But I do believe that if we all work together, just like different churches, if all the churches came together and worked together, could you imagine how far we could go instead of everybody fighting against each other? It's the same with paranormal groups. If we all came together, supported each other, and tried to raise each other up, we'd get so much further than fighting each other. Positive energy always wins.
Amen, sister.
Trust and believe. No, it is true though, and I avoid certain people because that negativity, even when my teenager comes at me with negativity, I'm like, ain't nobody got time for that. Like, I cannot handle that right now. I do not want any negativity because I'm fighting a lot. All of us are in this time with not having our jobs, waiting on the next stimulus, and having to stay at home and wear a mask and have that sweaty area when you go out. Which I do wear. I don't know about you guys, but I do wear my mask and do my part and stay at home otherwise. I'm just waiting till social distancing, like I said last night, is on my terms again, instead of having to be forced into it.
That's funny. As soon as you said the social distancing, I looked up at a beer sign that's hanging in the back patio, and it says, "Please practice social distancing." It's so weird how the world has changed.
Yeah, and it's
Hopefully
funny.
Everything gets back to normal. I can't wait for it to get back to normal. I want to go out and hug my granddaughter. That's the first thing I'm going to do.
Aww.
I
know,
miss
and
her.
there's so many people like my husband, for example. So many people breaking these rules, going out to see family members, doing different things for them, visiting different people. I'm like, dude, okay, so we're getting this check to stay home and to do our part, and you're just this social butterfly and you can't stop. Even when we go to a store, sometimes recently, within the last 2 weeks, he got a mask. Sometimes he'll wear it out, but sometimes it's like he's too cool, and it's really pissing me off because you're actually counteracting what I'm trying to do. You going out without a mask when I'm wearing one, I might as well not be wearing one because you're going to pick up whatever I don't.
Well, I think that some people just believe that no matter what they do, they're fated. They're fated to end up somehow, some way, whatever. like life's just fate. It's not about chance, and so they don't really give a hoot about what they're gonna do or think about what's gonna happen because they are under this impression that no matter what, life's gonna snuff them out somehow, and they're not gonna see the big picture like a majority of the people do, I guess.
Well, and I have a lot of friends, and I'm not going to unfriend anybody over this because we all have our own opinions. I'm not going to get pee-pee hurt because you have a different one than me. You know, we'll share our opinions, hopefully learn from each other, but there are friends of mine that believe that this is a hoax, this isn't actually happening, this is an attack on Donald Trump, all kinds of other things. I'm like, are you serious? Did you not follow before it got here? Like, did you not follow Italy and China and all these other places that was happening? Like, Italy's numbers are off, not because they made it up, but because a lot of people died at home that had it, that couldn't make it to the hospital. And the hospital didn't even have room for a lot of these people, you know? And it's still happening over there. We got on top of it pretty quick, so we're a couple weeks ahead of everybody, even though our numbers are pretty high for the numbers we have as a community. But we're on top of it. Do your part, though. Stay at home. Wear your mask. Use your social distancing.
Well, it's clearly happening. There's clearly people getting sick. There's definitely people dying. So there's something is to it. To not treat like it's not there is not helping anybody. But yeah, we just gotta just CYA. You know, like in the Marine Corps, you gotta cover your own ass, I guess, and just wear your own mask and wash your own hands and all that stuff. But you know, being a cook in the Marine Corps, it taught me how to be safety and sanitary for a long time. So I've always been a weirdo, washing my hands constantly. So
OCD.
I'm used to it.
Well, it does happen. There's different things too. Like you said, cover your own ass, but at the same time, leave no man behind. So even though you cover your own ass and you're trying to cover your brother's ass or your sister or whoever, I think finally they're letting females into the combat field. They didn't do that before because men have this particular feeling of having to protect the female, so they'd be distracted. But I think they are finally doing it, supposedly, from what I've heard. But generally it'd be males in the field, and if your brother goes down, you don't leave him behind. You take him with you. But yeah, like, it's insane.
Well, it's just the natural order of life. Everything changes, right? It's the yin and yang of things. You know, eventually we'll be replaced by robots fighting for us until it's us fighting the robots, maybe. Who knows, you know?
Yeah, that's a really big thing.
Everybody will have to fight then, man and woman.
Yeah, that's a really big thing in Japan. They're actually worried about their offspring because a lot of the men in Japan are buying these sex androids and using those instead of actually being with a woman and reproducing. So they're worried about their numbers. Remember when in China and Japan they're like, you can only have, you know, this or this, or you can have only so many children, and now they're like, hey, come on, people have children, because they're really into these android AI thingies. It's really creepy. One of the ways they're going to take over and take us out.
To each their own. I'm not going to judge anybody. Right? Like I said earlier, I'm the biggest dirtbag in the world. I want to make that clear to everybody. If I ever get 2 million followers on YouTube like Tyler Secure Team does, and I just want to make clear, you know, I was garbage before. But I'm trying to be a better person.
Little did Dave know he was walking right into Tessa's web.
Yeah. But it's funny is, you know, like with these pandemics and every other kind of thing happening, sometimes people will see Mothman before that happens as a harbinger for bad things to come. But, you know, I had told you earlier I had saw Mothman a few times. It was kind of bizarre, but I never had anything, huge bad happen after it. Do you want to hear about the Mothman I saw?
I definitely do.
All right. So it's funny because, you know, SOR, they had a guest on a few weeks ago named Lon Strickler, and it kind of struck out to me what he said. I guess Lon comes to where I'm at, around Forest Park and Berwyn and Chicago on the west side, and he investigates cryptids flying around like Mothman. And one time I was chilling out in the backyard, and I saw this big, giant, gray-black bird. It was ugly as hell, and it was flying over. It wasn't flapping. It was just gliding. Like a glider would just tilt its, wings back and forth.
Yeah, on the
And
wind.
it had, I could see its eyes, and they were bright red. And what was weird about the eyes is they looked like a fly's eyes. Not like the flies where it has all the crisscross stuff in it. But if you ever to look at a fly's eyes, it kind of has like the same red tint to it, whichever way you look at it. And when this thing
like a red
glided
sheen.
over, when it glided over, it had the same exact red eye to it until it took off and it was gone. And I saw it do the same thing twice over maybe about a 2-year span. It did the same. It was like this big, giant, devil-looking, horrible-looking bird. And then when I would go to work, I work at O'Hare, and so I would talk to people around me. I'd be like, hey, did anybody see Mothman lately? About like 5 or 6 people will jump up and be like, hey, yeah, my dad saw it one time in an alley in Berwyn. And this other guy will grab me. He's like, hey, check out my Facebook post I did about the Mothman I saw. So it's a really big thing around here. It's kind of weird. I didn't know how. At first, when I saw this big, ugly bird, I had no idea there was a thing called Mothman. Now I know what the hell it is.
Well, yeah, and I've heard different people say, okay, it's something bad and it's causing these issues. And then I've heard other people say that it's there to protect. So it's trying to warn people when something bad is about to happen. So I was wondering, with your experiences, did anything bad happen after you saw it?
Oh, my whole life's been a tragedy since the start.
I know, me too. Mooney's like, can't you talk about anything happy? I'm like, let me think.
but I'm a survivor, but I did go through a lot of personal shitty shit all my life. And, I just think I had bad karma from all the stupid things I would do as a little kid, and just getting it all back. But nothing major ever really happened after seeing a Mothman, no. No, none at all. But
Yeah,
a lot of
'cause that
people
was
see
one of the
Mothman
things-
around. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was one of the things for me because different people say different things. So is this really this entity that knows something bad is about to happen and it wants to warn you? Or is it just fucking shit up and causing drama?
I don't know, but you know what? Recently, people were seeing Mothman about a year ago around O'Hare Airport, and now we have no airplanes flying. So, who knows? Maybe he was there to warn people or come out and about. But what's weird is there's a lot of weird things that happen around the north side of Chicago, around O'Hare and around that area. There's something either Mothman or UFOs, and you know what? I think Mothman is kind of connected to the UFOs in a certain way. I think there's something that they're combined, like something about cryptids. Thinks it's
What about Bigfoot?
supernatural to me. When I went to my son lives out in Yakima, Washington, and my granddaughter lives there. But I would go visit him, and I would talk to people around Yakima, Washington, and they would give me the most vivid, detailed stories about families crossing a bridge. And he would say, this one guy I was talking to, he would like, yeah, I saw a family of Bigfoot crossing a bridge one night, and he said he saw them all crawling over, and they had them on, like they were carrying the juvenile ones on their backs as they were crossing over. But these guys really get into their story, and I'm looking at them in their eye, and I'm like, damn, I wish I had a video camera right now to retell this, because I've never personally seen a Bigfoot, but from what I hear in eastern Washington, and it's a real thing.
It really is. We even have it here in Colorado, and not only do we have Bigfoot, there was an albino Bigfoot spotted. There's 2 different things that could be. There's albinos of every species, and this one is an outcast on the other side of the valley from the other ones because we were guarding a mine in Rico, and there was a Bigfoot that started to throw boulders after a while. It was tired of us being there every night, and but when I went up for an investigation, this mother and daughter told me about an albino that they had seen. So is this outcast because it is albino and different, or is it outcast because it's an older member, as if like in ape, like civilized structures, they outcast the older male and the new male takes over. So it could be, kind of like the ape-like thing. They cast the old male out, and that's the white albino-looking Bigfoot you see, or is it actually born albino?
It's amazing. I wish I could see one. But this guy had told me that they buried their dead. He was trying to tell me that they buried them. That's why we never find them, because they buried them. And me and my brother Matt, who owns the bar over here in Forest Park named Carol's, we get into these discussions a lot, saying why don't we find it? Why don't we ever find any Bigfoot roadkill, or just something dug up halfway in the the woods? You would think that these things would have been discovered by now.
Well, it's amazing though. Like you don't find like fox or wolf or bears. Like barely do you find anything in the forest, because there's different things that consume it, whether it's yellow jackets or different carnivorous things that come and eat upon it. And it's hard to find any sort of skeleton out there. I've seen a few deer bones spread out, which kind of creep me out. I'm like, is this deer? Is this human? What the hell is this? But when do you ever find any sort of skeletal remains in the forest?
I would never know. I don't like to hang out in the forest. I like very urban settings like Chicago. I need to be around a lot of people and a lot of noises and a lot of trains going by. And, I go out to visit my kid in Yakima, and it's just so quiet. It's such a different world. I'm just like, oh, my God, everybody's asleep at 10 p.m. I'm used to Chicago where everybody's up all night, 24 hours a day. So, and that's another thing people say to me. They're like, I'm in such an urban area. How do I keep seeing these things all the time? And I just kind of think they actually enjoy the urban area too, because there's so many planes flying around and helicopters going by and whatnot. They kind of just blend in my opinion. Like when I go out to Yakima, if I see UFOs out there, they're kind of like the only things in the sky at that time. So I'm sure everybody's watching the sky out there at that time. That makes sense.
There's so many things in Washington. I actually lived there after my dad sent us for a vacation. My grandparents took care of us, and then my aunt and uncle came and got us, which my aunt is now my mom. My uncle is deceased, but in Washington State, you have so many anomalies. You have UFOs. You have this light anomaly, which is like this tribe used to inhabit this area, and you'll see a light going through.
Well, when I was in Yakima one time, I had seen a very bright light. It was probably the size of a Volkswagen Rabbit, and it was right at the treetops, and it was staring at me, and I called out to my ex-wife. I was like, hey, Lorena, get over here. Look at this thing. And she runs out, and she's like, oh, my God, what's that thing? And she was freaked out by it, but the funny part is a minute later, I was hearing the afterburners of a jet like take off, like it was cruising. And this thing was very close and very bright. It was quite remarkable. Yakima was a trip. What was I going to tell you about it? Go ahead and say something, and I'll come back to the story I was going to just tell you.
Well, the light thing I was talking about, my Aunt Bonnie was like, hey, let's go out there because there's this light that comes down the mountain. You can see it going down the trail, blah, blah, blah. And we parked and we watched, and it did happen. It started at the top, and it started going down, and you could see it going down this trail or whatnot. I don't think it was natural. I think it was supernatural, perhaps a recording of happenings in the past that just repeats itself. But there are a lot of UFO sightings, a lot of Bigfoot sightings, even in California and Washington when the fires were happening. I don't know who it is, National Guard or whoever comes in with the helicopters with the nets and takes out dead bodies, but people were witnessing dead bodies of Bigfoot being carried out in nets from the burn sites. And,
yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, it could be human, but they could tell by the largeness of the head and the way the body was and how large it was that it was a Bigfoot. Even back when they started to do the almanac for Washington State, they actually put Sasquatch as a protected species.
Yeah, and did they give them voting rights at the same time?
I don't know about that.
They probably should. That's what Eastern Washington believes. But it's crazy. I see a ton of stuff in Eastern Washington. There's lots of UFOs. I remember driving to Yakima one time over the pass, and there was just a big bright star. It looked like a little a spiraling galaxy that came up, and there's truckers behind me driving, and they had to have seen the same exact thing. It was unbelievable. It's crazy amount of, like, Chicago I see a lot, but Washington I see a ton. And one time,
oh my goodness, I can't even
my
imagine
son-
living there. Go ahead.
my son, he turned 16, and he wanted to drive. So we were getting him his driver's license. And he's like, I need hours to go drive, get on my record to get the license. So I said, I was such a nerd. I was like, it was July. I was like, all right, we're going to drive to Trout Lake, Washington then. I made him drive all the way to the East Eddy Ranch. Have you ever been to the East Eddy Ranch?
No, I haven't, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, I took
It's on my
him
bucket
there,
list.
and it was an amazing place. I saw a lot of stuff there. I saw tons. I made a video of it. It's pretty crazy. I broke James Gilliland's lawn chair. He wasn't
Nice.
there at the time, but
As
we
long
were
as
seeing
you got
tons
it
of
on
stuff.
video, that's all that matters.
But what was funny, my son, he hates it. He hates UFO stuff. He just went to the car and talked to his girlfriend the whole time. But there was other, what was weird is that there was other little kids out there, like, I guess they were camping or whatever, but everybody's sitting around in a circle, and nobody's beating drums, nobody's chanting, nobody's doing any drugs. I think James Gilliland's actually anti-drug, but it's just a bunch of people just chilling out with spotlights in their hand. But I remember there's little kids there, and these things would fly over in every direction. They would brighten up. And I remember this little girl and be like, Mommy, are those UFOs? Like she was just like, oh my God. Like it just like, you could tell it just hit the little kid. Like that's reality. They're here.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like, this has been happening forever. They're still denying it. And now they've named them something else. What is it, AFOs or something like that? Instead of UFOs, it's...
UAPs.
UAPs?
UAP.
Unknown Aerial Phenomenon. Yeah, I think you're right.
Unknown aerial phenomenal. Yeah. Is my internet going out again? Is that why? Is everything cutting out again?
You sound perfect.
Okay, good. So do you.
Nice. Good. So we got it under control, but yeah, it's insane just the different things we experience and why are we experiencing them. Anytime the UFOs have come around, a lot of times it's over nuclear facilities and they turn off switches and cause other havoc. And then if people get too close, they tend to get like radiation poisoning, different things like that. But it's interesting that people have said when they look on the side of aircraft, it looks a lot like Egyptian or some other writing on the side of it. Have you heard of that?
Yes. I saw a UFO.
Aramaic?
I saw a UFO that kind of looked like a Aztec pyramid one time. It looked like a dragon.
I saw that on YouTube.
It had that
too.
look to it. Yeah, it was quite amazing. It was giant. It was probably the size of maybe about 2 or 3 houses, and it just had all the features of a old like not Mexican, Aztec or Mayan. What's that, Quetzalcoatl? It looked exactly like that thing. I was like, oh my God, look at that. Too bad nobody's around to see these things. I tried to record it the best I could with video, but what's funny is one time I was flying back from Dallas to Chicago, and I looked out the window. I did a video of this one. It's on my Gutter Gawker YouTube channel. But there was a black thing in the sky, and I look out the plane, and there's this huge UFO outside the window. And so I tried to record it the best I could. I know the pilots had to have seen it. But when I looked down to see, we were flying from Dallas to Chicago. When I looked down at the ground to see what was around to take like a picture of some markings, we were right over a UFO reactor. I mean, maybe not right over, but close. Maybe it was an older one that was shut down. But there's something to the, like you were talking about earlier, the reactors that they like to be around. I guess they might power up from them. I have no idea, but...
Did you even see when that nuclear rocket was going through the air and that UFO basically shot it down? It's like, fuck no, you ain't using nuclear technology. That's what's messed us up every time we get to a certain extent, even on Mars, I believe, that nuclear war or nuclear activity has messed us up and caused us to have to reset.
Well, now we have Elon Musk to take over for us and get us to Mars, and
I know
hopefully
he was saying something the other day. He's like, I really shouldn't probably say this, and then everybody's like, come on, say it. What are you going to say? And he's talking about marijuana dispensaries, which for me, that's my tea time. I do grow and partake of marijuana. That's my tea time. I'd rather do that than drink because it's healthier for me. Like, yeah, smoking cigarettes and everything is bad for you, but God put it here for a reason, you know, and certain things are depressants, so on and so forth. But I don't know. He was talking about how dispensaries are still opened and considered essential.
Essential, right?
Yeah,
right.
And liquor stores are the same. You know, they're essential because
Elon from the beginning has always said it's a bullshit thing. He's calling it a plandemic, and
he's a pothead too. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Elon's on his own level. You know, he was on Twitter the other day saying that the country is run by old people. You know, which is kind of a little bit of ageism. A little bit of ageism on his part, but you know that's how Native American and First Nations tribes survived. You know, they listened to the old people with all the history and the knowledge, and they got past all the bullshit. And except when it came to the crazy white man with his weapons and his diseases and his Bible. But I take that with tongue in cheek, what I just said. But you know, I want to see everybody be treated fair in this world. You know, and I forgot what I was going to say, Tessa.
I know. The blah, blah, blah in the background probably distracted you. But yeah, as far as the Bible, I do believe in scriptures, but I do believe it was in the hand of man. So therefore, they take out things, they omit things they don't want you to know, and then they add things that they want you to believe. The Catholic Church just recently said it's going to redecipher the Bible and publish it to where it's not perverted like that. But all the time, we're finding different tombs and different scripts that add on to that. And I think it is important, even though it's biblical and people are like, blah, 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 Christian, whatever. I believe in certain things, no matter what religion it is. If it speaks to my heart or my gut, I'm going to take it into account. But there's so many different scripts and different things being found in different tombs and sarcophaguses and different, even really big vases. There's so many innumerable valuable things in there, and not even gold, like things that we need to know and that we can learn from. But yeah, history is amazing. We need to learn from it. We need to adapt and overcome and persevere. Like, it seemed like we got ahead and now I feel like we're 20 years behind. I personally feel that way, but that doesn't mean everybody else does. But I think we've gone back 20 years as far as racism and different ignorant thoughts. It's pretty sad.
Well, that's just because the internet. That's because the internet's new, and all these little kids have the internet now, and all these ideas are spreading out super fast. Back in the day, we just had, central places to get our information from, and knowledge and music and ideas. But now it's spread out so much, it's hard to keep up. But I think the bottom line is the cream will rise to the top, and that's usually the peaceful people that handle things like mature adults and think about things pragmatically and try to solve problems without hurting each other. When people talk it out and solve it, that's probably the best way. But for some reason, these generations, they get very testy lately, but they got to learn how to calm down. And, one day they're going to realize that these UFOs are real and we're all just brothers and sisters as human beings. And we're all going to have to, come together and either embrace them or fight them.
And it's amazing the different stories as far as how it came to pass. There's the whole Adam and Eve or whatever story. And then there's the whole we were seated here by the aliens to mine out the gold and silver and different things that are conductive for space travel. Perhaps they let us run amok and do our own thing because they had gotten enough of what they needed. Now they're back. But I don't know. There's so many different theories, so many different stories as to why are they here? Why are people being abducted? Why are their children being taken?
I wish I knew, but like I keep saying, I can only judge them by the actions from what I see when they fly over. I've never met them. I don't know who they are, but for some reason, they appear to be very nice and polite, most of them. But, like I said before, there are some that don't look too happy to be flying around. So if there are abductions going on, I feel bad for those people if they aren't having a good experience. I'm sorry, my brother Matt's having a spaz attack in the background.
It's no worries. It's not really interfering. I can hear it, but I can't decipher, so it's not distracting me. But yeah, it is
that's just my
interesting.
karma, though, Tessa. The minute I want to do something, it's like, oh, there's something jumping in my way. It's like, oh, I gotta fly somewhere really fast, and then there's the red light that jumps in my way. I don't know why these things happen, but I guess somebody likes to see me, jump these hurdles all the time.
High five, I hear you, brother. It's like every time you want to do something, something gets in the way. Otherwise, if you're just piddling around, wasting away your time doing certain things, it doesn't matter. But as soon as you want to do something, there's something else that is a barrier, but you gotta jump over it. Kick them in the balls. Keep going.
and I want everybody in your chat room and all your listeners to know that I'm not a professional. Oh God! Sorry, I'm talking to Matt. I'm not a professional at this. I never doing this. I never planned on jumping out and talking about all this stuff. And so when people hear me talk, I hope they don't think I'm a dork or a nerd or a loser. I never planned on being a person that really spoke out about this. And I'm putting all this together on the fly, and I'm trying to do it all my way, and I'm trying to do it uniquely and genuinely and honestly as I can. So, if anybody out there should have a problem with me, if they look at any of my videos on YouTube, or if they watch any of the live streams that I do currently, I like to talk to different people in the YouTube community about paranormal stuff. So, I'll have random guests on to talk about stuff. But I never scripted any of this. I never planned on any of this. So how I come across is me. So, just like the background noise, there's no control. I just go with the flow.
Right? There's only so much you can do. You can't make water run uphill. But yeah, it's really interesting. When I first started doing the paranormal show for Dave, I would write out all my questions, but I found that when I did that, it would really take us off topic a lot of times because we'd get into a certain subject and then I'd go to another question and then it'd just be all messed up. But I just like to, as usual, per life, fly by the seat of my pants and have a good time and just hang out and feel comfortable and let you feel comfortable too. So I hope you have, and I hope you come back too. I'd love to talk about more of your experiences and such.
Yeah, that'd be great. I would love to do that, but, I just want to finish off by saying, again, I'm me, I'm not trying to be anybody. I'm not trying to sell anybody on anything. So I just really enjoy the paranormal community, especially the chatters. Those guys are great. But if anybody wants to talk with me on Facebook or Twitter, just hit me up or, make a comment on my chat, my one of my videos. I'll always talk to anybody that wants to talk about paranormal stuff, but I got to get my brother calmed down. He's spazzing out over here.
No worries. So mostly our listeners can find you under Gutter Gawker in different media.
It's on Twitter. It's Gutter Gawker. On Facebook, it's Gutter Gawker. Gooter Gawker. And then YouTube, it's Gutter Gawker. Find me on YouTube. That's the best. I love YouTube. I love connecting with people on YouTube. Like I was talking about earlier, some of the greatest people hang out there. You're surprised at who you start talking to when you just start striking up conversations with people. It's phenomenal, the people out there.
Well, yeah, that's the first time as far as, as opposed to having my own team and having my own paranormal family over there that has all their experiences and we've shared and we know each other. But like being in SOR, that was my secondary paranormal family. Like, these are my people. And I still have family with me today, and I'm so grateful for them that they are my friends, they are my family, and they're not going to ditch me over some BS. But I think it's so important that we do share our stories, and I think not only does it enlighten others, but it enlightens us as far as getting that weight off of our shoulders or off of our minds, as far as feeling like you're going crazy, like, is this really happening? Yes, it is. There's other people experiencing it too. There's a small percentage that is really crazy, But for the most part, we're all just normal, everyday people.
Well, I agree 100% with you. You know, these people in the chat, they're not just chatters. Some of them are my family, in my opinion, because with this lockdown BS happening, you know, I'm locked down in a haunted bar in Forest Park, Illinois. But that's when I started reaching out because I wanted to interact with people. And, you know, it's great that we can do this, Tessa.
I think it's awesome and it's funny. Like a lot of bigwigs that usually are used to doing their live shows are like, hey, look what we found at Skype, or they're all on individual screens. And we've been doing this for a while, but it's awesome to have you on here and to hear your stories. And we do have about 15 minutes left. Do you have a story or an experience that you could tell us about within this last T-minus 15 minutes and counting?
I'll tell you about the O'Hare UFO from 2006. I got to interview the first two guys that witnessed it, if you want to hear it.
Hell yes, I do.
That should take about 15 minutes. That's a great story. Everybody knows about it. It happened in 2006. If you know anything about UFOs and have been following it for a while, I'll give you the real story about what happened at O'Hare. If people would calm down for a minute, I'd be able to tell a story. But
come on, brother.
Oh, God. It's like, all right, I got to sit down and talk. Will you guys shut up? Yeah, sure. Blah, 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 blah. But anyway, sorry.
No worries.
In 2006, I worked at, well, I got to say this for the bar real quick. If anybody's ever in Forest Park, Illinois, and they want to come to Carol's Bar, come on by. You can meet the haunted ghost and all that stuff. I'll say that.
Promise?
I guess that's what I had to do the plug. But I'm sorry, Tessa. But in 2006, there was the O'Hare UFO. And it was big international news. Lots of people got involved. And these guys are really throwing me off over here. But
that's where headphones help.
The headphones I put on, and it throws off my microphone.
Damn it all. Sorry.
Whoa!
You got a dirty sock you can shove in his mouth? Come on, brother.
No, man, hey. But anyway, wish I could move over here or move into the bathroom or something. Back in 2006, the O'Hare UFO. So, there's two guys, the ramp guys. They were assigned to push the plane back at Charlie 17. One guy's name was G. The other guy's name is C. I don't want to say their first names. I could tell you their first and last names if I wanted to. I worked with them for a long time. They're great guys. They wouldn't lie to me about shit. And I got to interview them about the O'Hare UFO in 2014. It was years after when they first started talking about it. Man, these guys are so loud.
I can hear you good, though, so just try to plug your ears and continue.
No, but I'm like sitting here talking to you, and then they got to start going crazy.
I know, and then when you get loud, like they're quiet for a minute, and then they go back to the high volume. Yeah.
So anyway, back in 2006, these guys were pushing out the plane at Charlie 17. I asked them what they saw, and I'll say his first name because it's easier to tell the story. Cruz said he was the first one to see it. He said he saw it coming over Terminal 1 from C1 coming to C17. He said it looked like a flat, dark pancake coming over that was rotating. And he was looking up at it, and the other guy, Gus, comes over to him, and he looks at up and sees it, and he's like, what the fuck is that? You know, and they're both looking at this thing hovering over the airplane that they're about to push out at C-17. And that's when the pilot was like, hey, is it okay to push? And Cruz, who was on the headset, said, no, we can't. There's something above you. And he's like, what are you talking about? And the pilot opened up the cockpit door and looked up, and he saw something above the plane. That's when the pilot called the tower, and he said, hey, is it safe to push back? There's something floating above the plane. At the same time, Cruz made the call to the ramp tower saying, hey, there's a safety issue above C-17. Can you tell me on the radar if there's something flying over the plane?
Yet or no?
No, it's in the gate. It's still in the gate. It's ready to be pushed out. You got to push it back, and then it taxis out. And so they're both looking at this Well, the pilot sticks his head up, looks at it. The co-pilot sticks his head out the window, looks at it. The flight attendant sticks her head out the galley door and looks at it. So the whole crew on the plane's looking at this thing. People on the ground are looking at it. They're calling on the radio about it, and they're describing what it is. He says it's a giant, flat, dark, pancake-looking thing with no shape. It's spinning, and it's just rotating in place right above the airport. And all these guys are making calls on the radio. And so eventually they get the clearance to push the plane back because nobody can see it on radar, but a bunch of people are seeing it on the ground because Gus and Cruz, they said they looked around, they saw other people looking at it. And so they pushed the plane back. There's a wing walker and then there's a pusher. The guy pushing is like looking at the plane and the other stuff. The wing walker is looking all around the plane. And so when they got to the pushback mark and they cut off the plane, one of the guys said that there was a hole punched in the clouds. And the other guy, he said he didn't have time to see it. He wasn't paying attention, didn't see a hole punched in the clouds. But both of them are very sincere guys. They never told a BS story to me about anything paranormal in their life. But when I asked them about it, they were very, very specific and detailed about what they saw that day. And the funny part is that you'll read a lot of stories like I read one story from this Leslie Keene. She wrote a story, and then UFO Jesus later quoted it, saying that there was a large metallic thing.
Yeah, I tried to get that mofo on
she,
my show. He won't answer.
I think that she made up that story just to be in the news because from what these guys told me, that resembled nothing what she wrote. So, I keep getting back to this. I've seen them. I've talked to people. I've had all these encounters. I've tried to research as much as I can. I talk to these people. This stuff is real, and it's really hard for me when people don't take it as real because it's here. It's now. It's happening. It's been for a while, and I just want to know what it is. I'm past that. Give me the disclosure part. I want to know if it has good or bad intent. That's what I really want to know.
Yeah, I feel that way about the paranormal, UFOs, and these days about COVID. I'm like, are you guys serious? You think this is something to do with Donald Trump and this is all a ploy against him? This is all over the world. This is actually happening. And yes, the flu was really bad this year, and we had some really, really high numbers. It really freaked me out. And I was tempted to give my daughter the flu vaccination, but as far as COVID, I do believe it is happening, and I do believe it is something man-made that came from the Wuhan science lab, which is 2 blocks away from the Wuhan market, where it broke out. Like, give me a fucking break. How do you not put 2 and 2 together? But this is happening. This is worldwide, and it is not a political agenda for Trump. This is an actual virus that broke out that they lost control of. They thought they could control it, but really you can't control nature. Once you create something, nature's going to take over and warp it. I don't know how you feel, but that's how I feel.
No, I agree. Nature is always going to do its business. In the end, it's got its own plan. We're just here to watch, I guess.
I'm just here to observe and eat my popcorn. Usually I'm quiet about it, but after a while of seeing so many ignorant things posted, I have an outburst. I'll probably delete it later, but I'm still seeing what people say and how many brain cells they still have left. But it's just amazing what's happening, and I never thought in my lifetime, even though I had a blessing that said I would be leading women in a certain time, I never thought I'd see something like this where now they've made a law in Durango where you actually have to wear your mask to go out. I've done it anyways from the forefront just to protect myself because I don't know or not know about this thing. Like, I'm just trying to take the protective measures, but now it's a law. You have to wear one to go in. And then people wear it in, and then they take it off and wear it around their neck and walk around the store.
Yeah. Different times. Everything's always changing, Tessa. Just realize that. You always got to be the better person in the end.
Yep, that's the only thing that stays the same is change.
That's right.
All right, so we have about 4 minutes and 50 seconds. Can you once again share with our listeners where to find you? Sorry to make you repeat yourself, but just want to get it out there.
My favorite place for people to find me is on YouTube. It's Gutter Gawker, just like the gutter and Gawker. You put them together, that's it. That's my channel. I've had it since 2008. I know I got a weird troll name, but that's not the intent of it. I already told people earlier in the show why I got it, but that's my channel, and I recently started doing just unscripted live streams with certain guests that find interest in and want to talk to, and I started finding that interesting. I kind of enjoy asking people questions about their feelings about the paranormal and maybe the media background of it that they've been in. So if you guys are into that sort of thing, or you enjoy UFOs or haunted bars or whatever, just come on and check out my channel. If you like Twitter, it's Gutter Gawker on Twitter. And Facebook, it's Gutter Gawker with 2 O's instead of a gutter.
Indeed. And I just wanted to say, too, like, I have a total, social platform to jump from, and I have days open. If you ever want to come in and do a show at whatever time you want to, feel free to. Like, I pay for it. I want it to be used, and I can't be on every day. I have kids. Like, I don't have time for that. I have time for weekends and sleeping in on Mondays, and that's about it. Otherwise, I'm putting my nose to the grindstone. But I wanted to thank you so much again, Dave, a.k.a. Gutter Gawker, for being on tonight. It was awesome hanging out with you, and I hope we can do it again sometime soon.
Yeah, you're awesome. This is great. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much. You were the one of the first people that got into detail about my paranormal background, so I really appreciate it. Like you said, when people go through all kinds of wackiness, it's better that they get to talk it out, and it makes people feel better. It made me feel better. So if there's anybody that it helped tonight, thank you, Tessa.
Well, thank you so much, and I wanted to again invite you. I can add you on there, and you can basically turn the call off. But when you go back into Skype, you're able to join the conversation at any time. But we are on there basically all night. Really depends on what's going on, but I hope you join us. But I'm so grateful again that you joined us and that you shared your stories with me, because that's what I really love. Like, that's my addiction, is the paranormal and paranormal stories. So thank you so much for sharing your stories.
You're welcome. For sure. Send me the link. If I can get on, I will definitely join. And thank you very much for the opportunity to be here tonight.
Thank you, Dave. And thank you to everyone out there on We Are Paradox Media's Facebook, Spreaker, Twitter, Periscope, iHeartRadio, and wherever else beyond the Omniverse you are listening tonight. I had a wonderful time, and I can't wait to do it again next weekend, when I don't know what's going on because I have nothing booked. I'm a little behind schedule, but guaranteed there's going to be something good on the air. I want to remind you guys that we have Mr. Sleepy Dave Davenport on the weekdays with the Time Slip Cafe. Make sure you check in. Don't miss it. It's always awesome and mind-blowing. Thank you to our sponsors, Mr. Kevin McDougall, a.k.a. Mooney, Del Elson, Jim Morris, Miss Mia Savage, and our musical host, Roy Washington, a.k.a. Quest Nation. Make sure you check out his show, which is also on Spreaker.com. But again, you guys, don't forget, we are all in this together, and together we can make the world a little better. And together, my friends, we are Paradox Media, because without you, there is no us. Otherwise, I'm just going to be talking to myself. But if anybody out there that's listening wants to do a show for about 3 hours per day, it sounds like a long time, but it really does fly by. Feel free to hit me up. You can do it anytime that's suitable for you. We want to fill the airwaves. I'm paying for all this time. I want it full. But if you would like to join us on the Skype after party, look me up on Skype under tessa.n.thomas30. My email is at gmail.com, but look me up there or call me at 1-970-335-9596. Thanks you guys again for listening. It was awesome having you and hearing your introspects, outrospects, and so on and so forth. Until next time, nighty night, love and light. Have a wonderful rest of your week and take care of my yous.